please. It's a family thing.
I'm gonna keep quiet.
Hi,
then.
Mom.
That's funny. Okie dokie, folks. All right. So I appreciate everyone showing up. This is utterly fantastic. This is not our first rookie season, but this is one of our first rookie orientations. So I appreciate everyone taking the time to attend. What I really wanted to do was just, since we have a lot of new folks showing up, is I wanted to give them an opportunity to kind of like understand a little bit about the community and how we function at NASRS, understand the people that are here to help you, answer any basic questions, and also just do like a preliminary drivers meeting of some of the information that you'll hear multiple times in a lot of the races you're a part of. But I want to give you an opportunity to be exposed to it up front so that you can't ever be like, Davin, I never told you, because I definitely, certainly did. Another thing before we keep going is I do want folks to feel that they can ask questions as we go. So feel free to be like, Davin, I have a question. Can you repeat yourself? I won't always be looking at the Discord for questions, so I'm going to rely on Larry and Brian to help me there. But just also feel free to be like, hey, Davin, I have a question. I'll stop. I'll go back over again. So if there's something that's not clear, yada, yada, just make sure to be like, Davin, question, because that'll be a thing a lot. Any questions before I hit the button and do the thing?
No, sir.
All right. So, just a little bit of background about us. So, we have been around since 2020 under multiple different names. We've been the North American Sim Racing Series since 2022. We're a little different than other communities you may have been a part of because really our focus is more on educating you guys on being better drivers and trying to make the space relaxed. Like we have serious racing, there is serious times in the racing, but we also want to make sure that we're not being super sweaty. Like this is something that most of us are doing as a hobby after work. Like McLaren's not going to call you no matter how well you do in these races, but we definitely want to make sure we're here to help you and lend our experience to make sure that you're having the best racing experience possible. A lot of the people who are volunteering here have backgrounds in at least amateur racing to some degree, or mechanical engineering, or are a mechanic, or are a driver coach of some sort. So you have a lot of resources that you can take advantage of if you choose to utilize it. If not, that's great, and you can just have fun and enjoy your time here. And as long as you're not a dick, then it's going to be amazing, right? So I just want to kind of give you a little bit of that background about kind of how we work and function. We try not to be too sweaty. We try not to be too loud. We try not to kind of do a lot of that stuff just because we understand that everyone makes mistakes and yada, 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 yada. But I just want to throw that out there that we're not going to be super sweaty about how all the races go. I want you to do as well as you can, but I want you to learn about how to improve more importantly. So, any questions?
No, sir.
All right.
By the way, for those who didn't catch it, this is a push to talk channel.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I told Brian I'd say something about that, and I didn't. So Larry, best secretary ever. That's why I pay him the big bucks. See, there you go. All right. So, one thing you will notice is that we have several coaches here in NASRS, and we are unique because we don't charge you for any of this coaching, right? All of us believe that most of the basic fundamentals of racing and racecraft should be public experience that you guys should know about. And we also acknowledge that most of you don't have like car or racing background experience at all. So most of the time you don't know what to expect when it comes to car behavior, or you're not very experienced on car technology, like you don't know how the cars are set up or built. You've never maybe even been to a racetrack or an autocross or anything like that before. And so we've pulled together a group of coaches who have that background to help translate race car terms to everyday terms to make it easier for you. A little bit of my background. So I've been an amateur driving coach for about 20 years. I have experience in competition karting at the regional level, club racing like Spec Miata, other things like that. I've been sim racing for just about as long, autocross, things like that. I'm a published author, so I've been published with like Ross Bentley and Coach Dave Academy. I also run my own driver coaching service called Apex Advisory, which I have a YouTube and a blog where I write about how to be a better racer and mental tips and other things like that.
Didn't you just hit a billboard or a milestone at
Yeah,
that
I mean,
place?
we just started doing YouTube just a little while ago, so we just hit 100 subscribers on that, so that's been fantastic. I've been like writing and other things for almost over a decade, but I just decided to do a YouTube channel last year, so it's been kind of a nice little build on that. You'll see links to things throughout in some of the channels because there'll be topics that might be relevant that I will link to, and then be like, hey, you should read this, and you can if you want to, but you don't have to. Larry, do you want to introduce yourself?
Just as I put a chip in my mouth, yeah.
Yep, I'm good at it.
I'm Larry Foster. Obviously, you guys have all pretty much heard my name and my voice and that sort of thing. I'm the nosy old bastard that hangs out with the rest of us here. Um, I was a mechanic for 25 years. I'm now a welder fabricator at a different job, obviously in a different, kind of background. But for the most part, I have a lot of hands-on, and my whole thing was when I started seeing how hard it was to race and how hard it was to learn and watching other people make so many mistakes that I used to make, I wanted to make sure that everybody was getting the easy way in instead of fussing and fighting with it. Really, when it comes down to it, it's all about the learning for me and making sure that you guys get better and have an easier way to understand what you may not be able to understand while you're driving. And I guess you could say my coaching style is I can see what you're doing, but you're having to do it and you can't quite see it. I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, but basically you're trying to keep the car on the track, and I can go through and find the small things that makes it a lot easier for you to understand. Well, once you figure out the small problems that you're doing that you're not noticing, it'll make you a better driver overall. Also, I try to go through and kind of promote NASRS a lot. That's one of the things we'll talk about a little bit later. And also, I'd like to make sure that all of your gear is started and working well. Kind of give you a background of how the game works itself, because the game doesn't come with an instruction manual. I'm not saying that I am the instruction manual, but I can go through each one of the steps, each one of the settings, and kind of give you an idea of how to make it better for you. And that's the whole thing about this, is just to make it so that you guys enjoy this type of hobby without having to fight with it. And there have been so many people that we know that have absolutely super struggled to try and get this to work right, and it just doesn't. But it's because they don't know how to manipulate the settings, or say change one thing, see how it affects the change, what kind of an effect you get from the change, and that becomes very tedious at times. We had gone through a lot of different settings. We've gone through a lot of different changes and tried to make sure that everything was as smooth as possible, and we kind of hand you guys the big basic stuff so that you can learn how to drive and be faster.
Brian, you're here too. Introduce yourself.
Well, hello, NARS. Yeah, there we go. Larry kind of just says, I like to just say ditto to Larry, but Larry has a lot more experience than I do at coaching here. I'm really stick mostly to the track, coaching on the track, getting you how to control the car better. A lot of times, I'm more concerned with your mental part of the racing. I want to make sure that you're thinking properly, that your vision is good, and all that kind of stuff. I became a coach here because I've been trained from Davin and Larry. They've both taught me how to become a way better racer than when I started here 4 years ago. And I really enjoy dealing with all you guys and helping everybody out. There's nothing greater for me than when I hear someone say, "Oh, hey, Brian, that help you gave me, I managed to get an extra second on the track." Hey, fantastic. As long as you're having fun and enjoying yourself, that's why I'm here. And don't be afraid to ask anytime you see me on the track, or DM me, or even Larry. And I'm sure Davin will say it again, to say, "Hey, can you give me some pointers and help me out?" I'm always here to help you out. I'm a little bit of an older guy. I'm retired, so I have lots of time on my hands. But I'm still got other things going on in my life too, just like everyone else does. But other than that, hey, I'm glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to helping out anybody who needs the help.
Awesome. So there are a couple folks on this list that aren't here, but you'll see their names if you stick around, like Randy and Michael and Jeffrey. There are also various coaches with various other pieces of experience. I'll talk about it in a little bit more detail, but we have a general coaching role that is pink that you can ping us pretty much 24/7. So if you have driving questions, it'll just basically hit all of us like a bat signal, and one of us will jump in and help. The reason why we have so many coaches is because everyone has a different learning style. And so maybe you work with me and you say, I don't really like the way the Davin did it. I want to try Brian. Or maybe you want to reinforce something that you heard from me and you want to hear it from somebody else as well, right? We want to give you multiple options to be able to consume the information in the way that works best. Feedback also for us is very helpful. So if we say something that doesn't make sense, don't just say yes, because the lap time will show me if you understood it or not. So, ask us to clarify, ask us to, try to do it a different way. We won't be upset if you said, oh, I went somewhere else for the resource. We don't really care where you get the information from or the help from. We just want you to get the help so that you can have more fun and be faster. So these resources are available and a few other ones that I will reference in a little while. Use them at your discretion. All right. So, like I mentioned, we are going to talk a little bit about community basics. So, there's a couple of things that I think will just be useful for new folks that haven't been around the Discord. There's a lot of channels and a lot of reading, and it sometimes can be a little bit overwhelming. So, I want to just distill down to a few key things that you want to be aware of. We're going to talk about a few. You're in a very moldable state right now as new drivers. So we want to try to give you some tips and mindset things to kind of keep in mind as you start practicing and as you start going through rookies and such, that just over the years we've kind of gleaned from other folks that have come before you. And then we'll spend a little bit of time talking about ACC configuration and some computer setup tips. So you can spend some more dedicated time with Larry later, like going through and checking everything. But I do want to run through some of those basic configurations just so you're aware of them if you have or have not. And if you want to spend some time in game and mess with that stuff while we're talking, feel free and go ahead. This presentation will also be made available afterwards so that you have it. So if you don't remember everything we said, that is totally fine. Recording also will be made available too. So you'll have multiple ways to get to it.
Plus, my mind is full of that information. I can almost quote it verbatim right now.
Right. Okie dokie. So one important thing that I do want to lean on is that we are run entirely by volunteers, and I would go insane without these people helping. So I always want to show my appreciation for all the folks that help around in the background, from like our stewards and the coaches and Argent who runs the livery engine and our Discord admins and such to make things function. We we jokingly call this place a transparent dictatorship because, yeah, sure, at the end of the day, sometimes I have to make the final decision on things that happen, but I do rely on a lot of your guys' feedback and input on what you guys think and feel. Typically, like at the end of every season, I will send you guys a feedback form just to see how things are going, if you've been using the resources, if there are things you wish that had been different. That doesn't mean that things will change. Like sometimes you get the feedback and I acknowledge it and we move on. Sometimes we make changes to the way the formats are run and changed. But we have several channels where you can constantly give that feedback, or you can just DM me directly or ask questions. So you won't ever feel like you can't tell me how you feel about stuff. You will, though, get used to the fact that just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean change is happening immediately or at all. So that's a thing. If you are interested in contributing, there are multiple ways to do that. We can talk about it more at a later date, but just like if you're feeling some sort of way, there's always space, and we always appreciate your help. So. All right, so first thing in the basics on the getting to know you. So you guys have probably all read the basics channel by now, and if you haven't, you should, because I'm going to make everyone do it. And one of the important things that we mandate here is making sure that folks have what we call a real name. I don't know any of you. I don't know your real names. I am just not going to call you Noobmaster69 or whatever gamer tag you use other places.
Booby trap.
Right, exactly. It helps to build a little bit of community between all the drivers because we know them. We also use SimRacing GP for registration, and it helps us find you and find your name. And it just adds a little bit of transparency there. But you can use any alias or other thing you want to, because suffice it to say, I don't actually know if Adam is your real name, and nor do I really care to. I just need something I can use to call you that. So if you feel some sort of way about not using your name, use another name. And that is great. But I will be very stern on the fact if someone's like, I don't want to change my name, then I'm like, no racing for you. So, does that make sense for folks?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
The next thing is I'm going to have you read like a lot because this game
Please.
has a lot of reading in it. And NASRS is a lot about teaching you how to fish. So Suffice it to say, there are people who have played this game for 4 or 5 years and still don't know like the basic menus and things and functions of information they see all the time. And we are going to encourage you to learn that information and get used to it, because that is also how you become competitive and actually understand how things function and work. So you will get in the habit of me writing something down or putting a sign or putting something in a pin post somewhere, and then like letting you know that it's there, like tagging you often with some pretty picture like this one. And then as we get closer to the day of the event, if you ask me information that's in an obvious place, I either will say, go read SGP or go check the pen. And eventually I'll just say, I don't know, because it's been in the same place for like 4 years and you haven't looked it up. So we're going to start building that habit of reading through things. That doesn't mean that all the information is always there, but I respect people a lot more when they come and they say, I've tried to read everything and I can't find X, rather than like, I don't know if we have a pit stop in this race. I don't know how long the race is. Because if you're not going to take the time to look it up, it's frustrating for us to take the time to read for you. So that's sort of a thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. There's a slide that I didn't finish, and I'm just going to go through it anyway, but we still need to talk about this. It's just general no-nos. I got lazy and got distracted and forgot to finish it, but the top 2 bullets are important. So there aren't a lot of like don'ts in this league, but there are some pretty obvious ones, right? One of them is just a general decorum of how we treat people in the league, right? Like, this is a game that we're playing for fun, that is a hobby that no one's getting paid for. I don't want to be your dad. I totally will, but it is totally not fun. So we have this rule called the gentleman rule, that if like you feel in some sort of way about something, give yourself 24 hours to think it over and then come back. Try to keep a lot of like stupid drama out of DMs and like in-game chats and stuff, because frankly nobody cares but you, and it just creates like waves. Like, if you need an admin to do something, like DM me or something and I will reach out and we'll figure it out that way. But if we can keep a lot of that out of the general information chats on things, that will make people very happy. That doesn't mean like we can't ask questions and can't like clarify things. So like, you get into an accident in the race and you want to ask someone like, how could they have raced you better? Totally fine. Don't drag someone through the mud about stuff. I will come in very quick and swift about it, and nobody will have a good time, and I want everybody to have a good time. So let's make sure we all have a good time. Good?
Can I put a little note to this also?
Yeah.
Please, for anybody that is reading chat and text, please do not read text with any emotion attached to it whatsoever, good, bad, or indifferent. A lot of times somebody gets, kind of a bug up their butt maybe, and they start chatting, and somebody takes it the wrong way because they read it with a little bit of oomph behind it, and it becomes a big giant kerfuffle. We've had to deal with it. We have dealt with it. We have banned people for it. So please try to read text just as it's written. If there's an issue, then talk about it, but don't take it out on people in the public chat.
Another pro tip to this is I am pretty consistent in like putting a stamp on if I see some nonsense, right? Like, hey, we don't do that here. Hey, it's already been taken care of. Hey, hey, hey. Please try to do your best to not go on top of something I've done after that. One, to be frank, you don't always have to talk. 2, if I've already kind of dealt with it and you reopen it again, now you are the person I have to go talk to because you didn't read the first thing, and you don't always have to talk. So if you see a lot of that stuff and it like doesn't really involve you, let an adult take care of it, and then everything will be status quo just fine, right? But I bring that up because I know everyone has their heart in the right place and they want to help, and I appreciate that, but your helping is not helping. So that's the thing. The other thing just too is like, don't be a terrible person. Like, don't say mean things. Don't say racist things. Don't say awful things. Don't post terrible things. Don't, if you think you would get in trouble with the FBI by posting it, don't post it here. Like, don't make me have to do more work to tell you how to properly behave on the internet, and everything will be fantastic. 99.9% of the people on NASRS have no problem following this rule at all. And then
Federal Bureau of Davin.
right. And then the 0.1 are gone so fast you won't even remember. So most of you will never even encounter this at all. I just bring it up because some people need to be told to behave themselves. So behave yourself. Okay? Any
Yes,
questions?
sir.
Okay, now we get to talk about fun stuff. So we got like a billion Discord channels. There's a lot of stuff here, and you're probably like, holy crap, what do I need to pay attention to? Because there's a lot of crap. So I brought up 4 channels that are probably going to be the most useful because you're going to see them more often. So we have a channel up top called League Talk Only. If you want to be my best friend, like my best friend in the whole wide world, there are little descriptions at the top of every channel, and all of the channels tell you exactly what they're for. If you pay attention to what those channels are for, we will be the best friends in the whole world. I will say the nicest things about you. If you don't, I won't say as nice things. So League Talk Only is about League Talk Only. Right? So normally when we do like league updates, typically when I try to get people's attention of races that are coming up, if we have like a rule change that's significant, things like that, I will put that in that channel and I also will pin it. So every once in a while I'll go through and purge things if we have things from like we're in season 23 now. So if I see things from like season 12 or whatever that's not useful, I'll remove it. But a lot of the stuff that's in there is pretty relevant and very current. The second channel we have is After Hours Chat. So we have a channel for literally just general fun bullshit. Like, you want to talk about stuff that happened in your day? I want to hear about it. Put it in there. You took your car to the car dealership. You watched a football game. You got a pet. We love pets. We do pet threads a lot. That's a great place to put it. Like, you don't know where to put things? Put it in After Hours, right? I am fairly judicious in coming in and tagging people in threads that start to go off in random places. So if we're like in Rookie Chat and you start talking about how to configure your computer, I'm going to point you to sim hardware or PC hardware and be like, hey. And once I do that, if you continue to talk, then that whole theme I brought up earlier of not being my best friend kicks in, and it's not fun anymore. And I want to be best friends with a lot of people. So just pay attention to those things and everything will be good. We have coaching discussion. So if you want help, but like not specific help, for example, like you want us to take a look at a lap, or you have some general racing question that you don't know who it should go to, coaching discussion is a great place, right? Not only will some of the coaches jump in, but some of the other experienced drivers will jump in. Like, one of the things that's great about here is that everybody wants to help. Not everybody is a coach, though. I have a clear delineation for that because there is no rule that you can't get help from someone who's not a coach. But we do have like specialized people who have the specialized experience to specially help you. And then beyond that, you're just using your community to get information, which is really, really great. Right? So coaching discussion, everybody will jump in and kind of give their 2 cents about it. We'll link you to resources. If I've written something or someone else has written something or there's a video, we'll post that. There's a channel called Coaching Resources that's around there that, like, if I find something that's kind of evergreen, that's like, this will always be a thing, I will throw it in there. It's a Discord channel, so of course it's not going to be really curated, but it's just like top of mind things that you can scroll through to be like in mind of like, here's some racing things you should be aware of. And then practice server info. So our password is the same, has always been the same, will always be the same. Hop password is the same, will always be the same. It has always been in the same place, and you will find it in this place. So I don't bring it up here because I enjoy security and that's fun. And also I want to make people to read things. But if you ask me what the password is to events that have been running the same way for almost 4 years, I will point you to this place and then laugh at you if you ask me multiple times, because then I'll go, I don't know, it's in the place it's always been. So just be aware of that. When we're not in this sort of meeting call, like, we'll tell you, it'll be great, right? But again, I want to get you in the habit of like reading information and understanding where things are. So I'm not trying to be a dick on purpose. I just don't want you to be lazy, right? So the more proactive you are, the happier everybody else will be. Any questions?
No, sir.
Yay! All right, voice channels. We have a lot of them. What do we do with them? So we've got a social channel that is got people in it right now. That social channel is the general social chitty chat channel. All the rules of what I said about being a good person still apply in there, so don't make me mad at you. But that's the place you go if you want to just talk about stuff. It's popular. A lot of people hang out in there. It's a great place to meet drivers and ask questions and talk about stuff. I highly recommend you spend your free time in there. If you were on our House of Practice server, which I will talk to, it's highly advised, recommended, encouraged that you log into social channels so that folks know that you're driving. I can't tell if you are driving or practicing from the game if I'm not in the game. So part of the way we encourage people to like show up and practice together is like we will show up in social channel and all hang out, or show up in coaching rooms, or there'll be a social gathering of some sort to kind of let people know, hey, I'm here, come hang out with me. If you don't do that, then I don't know who you are, and it becomes much more awkward for everybody when we get to know everybody because you didn't let us get to know you, and that sucks. So let us get to know you and hang out in social channel. That's awesome. However, we also have some coaching channels. So some people just want to focus on driving or just talk about driving, and everything else about everyone's day they're not particularly interested in. They will come into a coaching channel. The coaching channel kind of has two big things of etiquette. One, if there's someone in the coaching channel, they are focusing on their driving. So like that's not a general chit-chatty space really, unless it's about racing, driving, working on the cars, fixing stuff. Right. So I will be kind of judicious in there if there's like shenanigans happening in a coaching room because you're taking up space that could be used for people who actually want to get faster, and that's a priority for me. Right? The second thing is we will have coaches that will be working with people in the coaching room, and we do that in a public way so that folks know that we're genuine about helping you. They are generally open for folks to be able to come and attend and listen in and learn through osmosis. So, I will say 95% of the time we won't have the coaching room locked down. It'll just be come in. However, we're working, so we'd really appreciate it if you're going to come into a coaching session already in process, if you would just be quiet and wait, like politely wait for a space to interject, kind of the equivalent of raising your hand, because we're doing stuff, and it's rude if you just jump in and start talking while we're doing stuff. There are times where we can like integrate you in and help you and stuff if things kind of apply and yada yada, but read the room there, please. Right? It's quite frustrating when you're trying to help somebody with their driving, and then some random person comes in and starts talking about random crap that could be in social channel. So I'm not telling you to go away. I'm just telling you to pay attention to the right place. Questions?
No, sir.
Hooray! All
All
right.
good.
Hooray! Okay, so moving on. This is penned in the coaching discussions, but I'm going to talk about this now real quick. A lot of people want us to review laps, and we are happy to review laps. We even review laps that aren't even part of ACC, but 95% of them are in ACC. However, there are some things that would make our lives extremely easy if you would do them. A big one is making sure that you record your lap and put it in like a public place, like a YouTube or somewhere where we can get to it easily. If you can record more than one lap so that we can see that it wasn't just like a one-off thing, because we're going to talk a little bit about consistency and the importance of consistency. This is not the time to try to impress us, right? Like, we've been around for a long time. We've seen a lot of driving. We've seen a lot of racing. We've seen laps better than yours. We've seen laps worse than yours. We're really just here to help you find ways to improve. So like you just waiting until you have a good lap, it doesn't help, right? Bring your bring your bad laps, bring your missed apexes, like bring them early, bring them often, right? Because we can help you. That
We're
feedback,
trying,
yeah,
sorry, that
no,
Matt,
no, go
we're
ahead.
basically in this situation, we're trying to evaluate some of your habits, whether they be good, bad, or indifferent, and we need to be able to find out if it's something we could even find possibly, say, something in your gear that's
Yep.
causing an issue. So that's the kind of reason where a few more laps, maybe 5, would be okay. But there'd be a whole different situation in that point.
Right. Coaching feedback also comes from a genuine place. So back to Larry's point earlier, like don't pull emotion into it. Like we're not going to sit here and just grill you in public, right? Like if you missed an apex, you missed an apex. If you're slow, the lap timer is going to tell us. So there's nothing really to hide there. We're not just going to be like, oh, you're shit, get good, right? We'll give you a few things to work on, or if there's like a big major theme of something we can work on that, and then later we can jump into a coaching room and really dig deep if you want to dig deep. That's entirely up to you, right? But we're here to help you be the best drivers you can be and also the best drivers you want to be. So if you don't ask for help, then I'm going to assume that you're just enjoying the game at the level that you are at and let you do that. If you come ask for help, we will totally come and help you. But I'm not going to bother you if you don't want to be bothered. So don't like be slow and then complain that you were slow and then not ask for help when there are plenty of resources to openly help you because that's on you now. So that's a thing, right? But if you post those things in coaching discussion, we'll take a look. Folks will give their input. As with everything, everyone's got an opinion about how you should be driving, so use the resources you trust the most, and you'll typically see a lot of consistency between replies. A missed apex is a missed apex. Everyone's going to see that. Bad braking is bad braking. Everyone's going to see that, right? It just kind of comes down to which person do you want to talk to first or the most, or who's available, yada yada. So, okay. All right, so let's talk about the House of Practice and how that works. So we are fairly unique as we have a server that is up 24/7 called the House of Practice. It is the public place where everyone is encouraged to come practice. So the one thing I would highly, highly encourage you guys to get out of your system as soon as humanly possible is I have to wait to race with other people. The House of Practice is designed for you to get comfortable racing with other human beings as quickly as possible. It's where everyone practices for the upcoming race. I will talk about that in just a second. But there are a lot of bad habits that you pick up very quickly racing with the AI. Like I said, I've seen people that are infinitely faster than me. I've seen people who are horrendously slower than me. We're not here to judge you. I don't care that you're 10 seconds off the pace. I care that you're practicing, right? So just hiding away on a single player isn't going to help you. The other thing that's not going to help you is that there are specific settings online in ACC with grip levels and other pieces of information that are impossible, not possible, do not do it in a single player instance. So you will you are doing yourself a disservice when you then show up on a race day and you're like, oh man, the grip is different. Oh man, the weather is different. Well, yeah, and we would like to try to help you and make it available, but you need to take advantage of that, right? So a lot of people are in House of Practice pretty much every day. The schedule kind of runs as every Friday morning I switch the track to the upcoming track in the schedule. So you'll see up top there's a channel called NASRS Event Schedules that has the upcoming season of all the tracks, so you will know the next 6 to 8 weeks in advance what they are. Every Friday I will switch the track. I will ping the House of Practice channel and say, hey, House of Practice is set to Spa or whatever the track tends to be. Um, Here in NASRS, we teach you guys how to deal with dynamic weather because we want you guys to learn to be adaptable. I also want you to learn how the game is played. So, learning how things like tires work, how brakes work, how things work at different temperatures is important. And when we get to talking about the race schedule and all that other fun stuff, we'll kind of talk about the themes of how all that works. But if you come to House of Practice, you can prepare yourself because House of Practice will either match or be within the range of tolerable of what the race will be. So traditionally, by Saturday evening, I've normally locked down the weather by that time. So sometimes on Friday, you'll see a lot of changing because I'll be like, that's not enough rain or yada yada yada. I will avoid doing anything that is undrivable, and I will avoid doing anything unless it's like an off-season race that is just like downright silly, right? So like last week we did a silly race where we did 24-hour time acceleration. We basically did like a whole day's worth of time progression in an hour, right? That was just for fun because it was in the off season. When we're in season for the league, they will be fixed and be very easy to manage. The conditions may be things you are not familiar with, but if you practice, you will become familiar. So we highly encourage you come and run with us. Um, I have not seen a single person in the 5 years I've been doing this that has ever been better in single player than shown up here. It is the place to be to come hang out with everybody. I'm there, Larry's there, all the coaches are there, and you will get to know us very quickly. And we want to get to know you. So show up, race with us. It'll be great. Questions?
All
No,
good.
sir.
Yay! Okay, so you're practicing. Hooray! Now, what do you do when faster cars show up? Because for 99% of you, that will happen. Now, couple things. One, you need to build up some experience getting comfortable with fast cars around you, racing in packs, racing with a battle buddy, things of that nature. It also helps the faster drivers get used to driving around slower cars. If you just kind of stay online and don't have the faster cars drive around you. So we work with GT rules here, where whenever there's a blue flag situation, it's up to the chasing car or the faster car to find a way to safely overtake, right? That means like you don't really fight us into the corners and such, but we don't expect you to move. We don't expect you to get offline. There are simple and easy ways you can lift at the beginning of straights to make it easy for fast cars to go by, yada, yada, yada. However, a lot of people take that to an extreme and they say, oh, Davin's coming. He's 4 seconds faster. Let me get out of his way. I would actually appreciate it if you didn't do that because it helps me know how to battle you more, and it helps you get used to having fast cars behind you. Especially on House of Practice, a lot of the coaches will sit there behind you just to kind of observe how you're driving, right? So if you slow down, I don't have that information and I can't help you if you ask me. So if I pull up on you and I'm just kind of sitting there, if I'm 4 seconds a lot faster than you, that's a pretty good reason I'm waiting, right? I'm trying to help you. Just chill out and just look forward and just drive, right?
A secondary tip to that also too, Davin, a lot of times I will follow a driver who doesn't quite have the proper line, and I try to drive the proper line, and I give them a visual to go back on the replay and compare theirs to mine.
Yes, yes, I will do the same. So if we are going into a corner together and you are in a dramatically different place on the racetrack than me, ask why, right? If I'm 3 seconds a lot faster than you and we're going into a right hand turn and I'm on the far left and you're in the middle, why are you not where I am? Right? That observational habit is one of the key things that helps people go faster because there are fast people already doing the thing and you are not doing the thing. And if you pay attention to where they are doing the thing and try to emulate where they are doing the thing, you are more likely to do the thing. But most folks don't, and they just kind of drive around. And then when we talk to them, we go back to where we weren't doing the thing and say, hey, do the thing. Right? So this is how you help yourself do the thing. I also just wanted to highlight the rule that we have in the rule set about this because when we get into races, this is going to become a thing. So the translated version of this, the short version of this, is you don't fight cars when they're going into corners. So if I'm leading and you're 13th, don't battle me as we're going into a turn. But I don't expect for you to like swerve offline. I don't expect you to do anything dramatic to really get out of my way. There are some strategic benefits of letting faster cars go by in the races, which we will talk about. But this is not Formula One. We're not expecting you to swerve or do anything dramatic for us to kind of get out of the way. Also, in the races, if you are in a battle with cars that are on the same lap in position, like for position, so you're in 13th and you're battling 12th, then the leaders just have to deal with it, right? So you don't have to stop your battle if you choose not to, just because a fast car is coming. Now, that is for cars that are on the same lap, like in numerical order, right? I don't know how to be more clear than that. If you are in 12th and you are lapping someone who's 2 laps down, you are not in the same race. So, like, all y'all should probably figure out how to handle yourself better. And you will notice that the driving will get a little bit more insistent if we've noticed and you haven't noticed to be like, hey, y'all, like, figure your life out, right? But it's still up for the faster cars to figure out their way by. So I recommend that everyone kind of race everybody equally, and it kind of makes most of that problem go away. However, right, don't like jump on the brakes when I'm coming next to you. Don't jump on the brakes on the exit. Like I'm anticipating that you're going to continue to drive forward, and so if you just stop, then I don't know what to do with that. And crashes actually go up, like the likelihood of crashes going up increases exponentially. So if you practice that behavior and how to practice, it becomes much, much easier in the race. The race should be the time that you execute the things you have practiced and practice. It is not the time to learn new things. So practice working around other cars faster and slower, and your life will be easier. Questions?
I have one.
Yes.
So for the blue flag that you just said, so if there's a battle like for 13 and 12 and fast cars coming, if the fast cars go, are they allowed to defend? Like the car 13th fighting car in position 12.
Oh, okay.
But
So yeah,
I'm
okay.
coming to lap them, but if I attack the 13, are they allowed to defend
Oh,
to keep their
no. So
fight?
if you're in car 1, car 13 cannot attack, like defend you, right? So if you're the leader and you go to pass the car in 13th, they can't defend against you. They shouldn't anyway, right? Now, in rookies and other classes, they may not be paying attention, but the spirit of the rule is don't fight cars on the lead lap, right? Now, if you're fighting with car 12, like if you're in car 13 and you're fighting with car 12, you can fight them as normal. That battle happens as normal. But if the leader makes a move on you while that's happening, don't fight the leader. Just fight the person on the same lap as you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great clarity. Anybody else have questions about that? Because that is a thing we go over a lot.
I will say that it can be advantageous for 13 to let number 1 go by and hunt 12 down.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's a
Yeah,
strategic
it is.
choice to that, right? And that's what typically we talk about that in the debrief. Like you can choose to let the leader go by you so that they can attack your opponent and move them in a place that is easier for you to attack. But as the leader, I'm not sitting here being like, get out of my way. Like the racer in me is, but the rules say I can't force you to do that. So, if I have to wait, I have to wait. Okay, okay. So, this is
Please, if anybody has any questions, the only dumb one is the one you didn't ask.
Plus, if you've been here and then you have a question about this, and then I'm like, did you have this back then? And don't, I'm gonna be like, why didn't you ask me? So ask me. So this point here is probably going to be one of the most impactful things that you will carry with you in your sim racing career if you choose to keep it in mind. And it is practicing with a specific purpose. So a lot of folks show up to practice with no plan, like zero. And they just kind of drive around and put in what I call junk laps. So they make mistakes, they don't really log what they are. They didn't really come to work on a specific thing, like a particular corner or a particular setup on the car or racing another person or running long runs and long distances or anything like that. They just came to drive around. And although driving is fun, sometimes you just end up wasting a lot of time because you're just driving badly and you don't really know what to fix or how to fix something. And so you're just blah, 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 right? And so you build up this bad muscle memory of driving poorly. If you give yourself a specific goal when you show up, at least it gives you something to focus on. And if you don't have one, coming to one of the coaches and asking for one is a thing, right? So I'll come and look at your lap times, for example, and say, oh my God, you have a delta of like 1.5 across every lap. We need to work on your consistency. So what I want you to do is focus on finding reference points around the track and keeping your lap time to within half a second of whatever the best is you can do, right? That is a much more practical use of your practice time than just try to go fast, because unless you're just like a neophyte or a genius at this, you will need a lot of help understanding all the techniques to go fast. So by having something clear to work on, it gives you something to check off, right? So it's kind of one of those perfect practice makes perfect things. You don't have to listen to me about this, but it's kind of a proven thing that it works. So if you like just driving around guessing, you are taking the longest, hardest route to figure out how to do anything good. And if that is fun for you, I hope you have fun in that endeavor. Most of us have limited time, so I'd like to take advantage of that limited time and help you with strategies to maximize that limited time. So this is a thing. Any questions, sir?
Another thing to remember about this when we're talking about helping you guys, none of what what we're talking about in any way is like a degrading situation. It's just some of the obvious things or some of the more noticeable issues that need to be, say, corrected or adjusted so that you do become a better, faster driver.
Right, right, right. I'm going to repeat this a lot because as like a general racing community outside of sim racing, we don't really educate our drivers on how to drive. And we don't encourage people to really like ask for help in a proactive way. And here in NASRS, we really try to focus on giving you like practical tips. So, I think I'll get to it in another slide in here of like resources, but like we have a YouTube channel that has a walkthrough guides of all the tracks in significant detail, like hour-long reviews of every track. Michael's done a fantastic job of going through all the tracks, I think minus one, where we've gone through every track. We've talked about every turn. I'm there in most of them too. We talk about what it's like from reference points. We talk about what it's like to race. We talk about all these things. Those are available there for you to use. We have a lot of coaches here that are here available to help you. They're available over here to use. There's a lot of supplementary information that we provide to you that's available for you to use. It's all free. We're not charging you for any of it because we want you to be better drivers. If you choose to want to do that, I'm not going to force you to do it. I want you to have fun, first of all. So if not doing these things is not fun for you, or not doing these things is fun for you, I hope you have fun. But for those of you who are serious about wanting to be better drivers, there's a lot of stuff that's here for you. And if you leverage that stuff, you will get quicker. Like, I don't know a single person who has gone through rookies who has actually followed the guidance that has gotten worse. I don't know a single one. I do know a lot of bad drivers who don't listen at all that are still terrible. And I don't want you to be those people. So, here to help. Questions?
No, sir.
Yay. All right, moving on. So, pet peeve of mine. We have a channel with all the maps in the game, and I need you to promise me that you will learn the turn numbers of every track in the game when we talk about stuff. Because, A, there are not that many turns, so it's not that hard to remember. B, I need you to get into the habit of like learning your environment and learning the tracks and learning things. And so if you can't tell me what the turn is called, I can't help you. And sometimes actively I won't because it's annoying and kind of rude. Like if you just come to me and say, "Hey, that left turn after the other left turn in the middle, I can't do it right." Why do I need to take the time to explain to you the complex motions of making a car function? Like, stop it, right? So there's a whole list of track maps for you to use. Sometimes I'll be lax about it, but most of the time I'm pretty stern on it, right? It's annoying for me. It's partly there also for your own education because, like, back to our earlier point of practicing with a purpose, it's a much better use of time to say, like, I'm going to work on that 9, 10, 11 complex than just, like, that tricky turn in the middle that I can't get, right? So,
Another thing too is it helps you to remember where you are on track.
right.
We see sometimes a lot of drivers that kind of forget where they're going, and after a while it starts to make sense. I have done it myself.
Yeah.
I have tried to make a left-hand turn in a right-hand corner before.
Yep. Yep. And back to the junk labs thing. I have seen a lot of people go around and 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 around, and then come to me and be like, I don't know the name of this turn. And I'm like, I have seen you here for 4 hours. Why don't you know the name of the turn? Go learn the map, right? So it's to your benefit. Also, you want to be my best friend? Learn the track map. Like, the only one that probably doesn't apply for that is the Nordschleife, because that's hard, but I even have a map for that. So when we get to that portion in the off season, more than likely it'll be Greg. We'll be super excited to do a walkthrough of the whole freaking track. We did it 2 seasons ago, and it was fun, right? But just learn the track maps. Just learn them. They're all here. Just learn them. Just learn
I did Imola backwards for half an hour, not knowing it. Look at the track map.
them. Yeah, so that's a thing, right? Like it just helps you build up a rhythm for where you're going. It helps for references of where you need to talk about stuff. When we work together in coaching, I will reference other tracks, or of like, this turn is very similar to this turn. And if you don't know them, then you don't know what we're talking about, and so we're not really making good use of our time. So that's the thing. Okay. Uh, so one fun thing we do here that a lot of other groups don't do is we have what's known as virtual track days. So every once in a while you will see a ticket that I will post up in normally rookie channel that says, "Hey, we're gonna all get together as a group and work on the track." Sometimes it's a just get together and like run around in a battle train where we all run together in trains for a while. Sometimes it's a clinic on something practical. So sometimes it's a format like this where myself or Michael or Larry or someone will pull a presentation together and we'll talk about a technique, or we'll talk about an approach or some philosophical thing about racing. I will always throw up a banner about it. I will ping you guys about it a lot. We have a couple of reaction rules in here for like folks in House of Practice chat, and I will tag those more than at driver. So I only really tag out driver, which tags basically all 3,000 people under really clear circumstances. One, a new season is starting, and I'm trying to get people to show up. Two, there is some sort of emergent change or emergency that I need you to be aware of, and so I'm letting everybody know because that way I don't have to ping more than one person. And three, there's like a special event where it's like, hey, this is cool. It's outside of our regular schedule. I'm kind of letting you know in advance so you know that it's showing up. But other than that, I won't ping those things. I try to keep everyone fairly well bundled together in roles, so I'm only pinging the roles. And in a lot of those roles, you have opted into those roles or have the ability to opt out of said role. So you can't complain to me that like, oh, you're asking me to practice over and over again when I'm part of House of Practice chat. I will point you to the reaction role tab and say, take yourself out, and then you'll never hear from us again. And I'll be sad, but you'll have relief, right? So we do these things because it's fun community building. We do these things because like folks want to work on certain techniques, and sometimes it's better to do it in a group. We also work on these things so you guys can pinball ideas off each other as you guys are talking. So just because I've said something doesn't mean it sticks in your head. There might be another rookie here who it makes more sense their way. Yada yada. So there's the thing. So, we have a swag store. It's super fun. We have mugs and we have shirts, we have jackets, we have hats, we have stickers, we have notebooks, we have buttons, And all of those funds go to help running the league. So like our practice server costs to make sure that that runs, our SGP stuff to make sure that that runs. When we have special events and we have prizes, we'll typically use funds from that. So none of that money goes into my pocket. I don't use it. I have its own special bank account, all in its own special unique place that I never ever touch. But if you're feeling some sort of way and you're having a lot of fun sim racing and you want to find a way to contribute and you want to do a little bit more than just volunteering, which is not an understatement, it's not a small thing, and you want something, go to the swag store. It's fun. I think the quality of the things are quite nice. They've held up for many years for lots of people. Here's a picture of people that have bought some things. I think we've done like 150 sales or something like that. So like you won't be the first one to buy them. I have literally ordered every single product in the store as a sample before it shows up in my house, and like run it through the dishwasher a million times, and like worn it outside, and like heat run them, and like all these things to make sure that they're not pieces of shit when you get them. So I think Larry has a lot of stuff, and his stuff is still good. So some of it's
Yeah,
proven.
I can tell you guys that he does not skimp on quality when it comes to specifically the t-shirts, the hoodies, the hats, any of the knit caps that you might get. All of the mugs work exactly the way they're supposed to. I've got one of the NASRS mugs, and when you put a cup of coffee in there, be careful. It takes the heat like you wouldn't believe.
So, it's a thing. I'm never going to force you to buy stuff. I never want you to feel like you have to spend money to hang out here. But if you're feeling some sort of way or you want something, like I always want you to feel like you're getting something of value back. So that's why we don't have like a straight donation bucket or like other things like that. I want you to get something for your time. So that's why we offer shirts. That's why we offer swag and tchotchkes. So you have something and it's not just like, oh, I put $25 in a bucket. Why am I not getting anything? Make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to take a pause because we're going to switch gears for a second. Is there anything that I've covered that doesn't make any sense?
Or that any of you could say offer maybe a suggestion too,
Or
because
you
we do
wish I
take
talked about?
suggestions for making things either better, worse, less, more.
Or you wish that I talked about that I didn't. Like, hey, there's a channel here that doesn't make sense. What the hell is this for? Things like that.
I have a question about the seasons. Like, is there one season per year, or how's that work?
No, there's not. So if you go to NASR's event schedule, there's a tab up front, and it's got every season, on season, and off season batched together. What we do is we bundle our seasons into 6-week groups, give or take. Sometimes we space them out for holidays and other things like that. And we'll have an in-season calendar and we'll have an off-season calendar. So in the in-season calendar, like what's coming up next week, you are in the same car for 6 weeks. There are championship points to go together. On the Tuesday class, there is a pro and am category, and there are like prizes for if you win that thing. It's just like a free shirt or something. It's not a big deal. But we track points for that 6-week season, and then for rookies, we have our rookie debriefs and kind of the rookie program and format. Then in the off season, we have like a 6-week period where every race you register yourself and you have open selection on any car that you want to drive. So it gives you an opportunity to try new cars. It gives you a different opportunity to practice different things on different tracks. We do that. So first of all, if you want a little bit of a break, you can take it, but the races still happen. We have done weekly races every week since 2020. So I don't know how many weeks that is. It's like 200, but we've done a race every single week, haven't missed a single one, right? Just some are grouped in championship points and some aren't. So
Can I add to that really quick, Devin?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it a little bit, but we'll always have off-season stuff. Not all of it will always be ACC. I did Hill Climb in Assetto Corsa. I know a lot of people have wanted to do historics in Assetto and a bunch of other little stuff, maybe in iRacing or what have you. So there's always something going on. It's just sometimes we're doing it for points, as Devin said. Sometimes we're not.
That's a really good point. Yeah, also like our endurance races. If we do an enduro, for example, we'll do it in the off season. That way, you're not feeling like you have to double dip, right? The track we pick will align with the weekly schedule, so that your time of house of practice isn't a waste, right? Like things like that. But it might be, for example, when we did the Watkins Glen 2-hour enduro, right? We had our weekly race for Watkins, so you could practice it. We had the off season schedule as per normal, but then on Saturday we had a 2-hour enduro, so you had plenty of opportunities to like practice and race and run Watkins all the way up until Saturday. Then we ran the race and then we switched. So
We also do sometimes one make races if you guys are interested in that kind of thing too.
But the schedule is always up top. So if you go to NASRS event schedules, they're always there bundled together. They're done in groups of several weeks at a time. So I try to do my very, very best to avoid last minute schedule updates because I find that to be stressful so that you know. But that also will tell you what the Hop House of Practice schedule is. So it shouldn't be a surprise to you that, like, oh, we're doing Spa because the race is Spa this week, right? And so we try to keep that level of consistency so it's easy to find. And I'll point you to that information, especially as you're new initially, right? But then after a while, if you ask me that same question multiple times, I'll go, I don't know, because you should know it's up top, and I told you already. But it's kind of things like that. Does that help?
All right. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anyone else have questions before I change gears? Okay. Quick question for the group. How many of you have some degree of performance racing driving experience? I'm not counting. I just need to hear a show of eyes in the group. Gone to a track day, done an autocross, anything.
Drag
did.
race and drag.
Okay.
I did drag races and I did a day of go karting.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
Would league indoor karting count?
Yes, it does. It definitely counts.
Okay,
That's
then
a
yes.
car.
Yeah, so it's a car. It's excellent, excellent. And for the rest of you, I'm sure most of your background comes from like Forza, Gran Turismo, either playing other leagues, playing with friends, things like that, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Fantastic. Awesome. Awesome. So I'm going to talk about some basic driving basics. I just called it that because just so that you have them in your mind. A lot of times I will point you to things like fundamentals when it comes to driving the car. You will learn a different way of how to drive around here that is different from probably what you've been exposed to in other places, but it's backed with experience from like Skip Barber or Bondurant or other places that I've either instructed in or worked with, or just like theory that just works, right? And we'll find different ways to kind of teach you those things. But I want you to be aware of them because there's a lot of unknowns for you guys. And so as you go through this driving journey, we're going to teach you about like how weight transfer works, why you use the racing line, like things like that, just so that you'll become familiar. I am not expecting any sort of perfection at all. I would appreciate some general attempt at these things, but I just want you to know that we are here to give you that knowledge so that you don't have to feel like you're just struggling. Because like track guides on YouTube aren't always helpful, other things like that. So we try to give you multiple ways of learning how to drive, and we know that most of you guys don't have that sort of racing experience at all or yet, and this might encourage you or motivate you to want to take some of the things you learn here and go and do something in real life, maybe. If not, that's great, but at least you'll have some education, so that'll be good. So one big thing I'm going to talk about is paying attention to the racing line, right? There's an optimal path that cars travel when going across the racetrack. There's a concept of using the most width of the track without really going too deep. You'll hear people say things like out and out a lot, which is basically starting from the outside of the track, moving to the middle, and moving to the outside again. The reason for that is that you steer the least and you have the most room to carry a lot of speed through turns. And so honestly, for most of you, if you're struggling with driving, 95% of the problem that you have is one, your line is terrible, and two, you're not on the limit of the tire all the time. So we'll talk a little more and some other things about like what does it feel like to be on the limit of the tire. I'll either do one-on-one instruction or I'll do group things about car control exercises to like learn how to get the car to get on the limit of the tire. What does that feel like? What does that feel like in the force feedback? Like what's a good slide versus a bad skid? Like things of that nature, right? But understanding that there is a racing line and an optimal path to go around the racetrack is kind of 101 for folks who are getting started with all of these things, right? So the sooner you are aware and familiar of that, the more fun you will start having going quickly. The second thing that I really want to talk about is the importance of consistency and going slow to build up speed. So the reason why you can walk without falling is because you started walking slow as a child. And then over time, you learn to walk, and then you learn to run, and then you learn to sprint. So you built up the muscle memory of the proper actions and behaviors to keep yourself balanced so you don't fall over. Racing is the same thing. So most of you because especially since we all know we don't have the experience of knowing what to do yet, aren't familiar with the inputs of what they do when they steer, when they brake, and what actually is happening with the car. They typically put in all the inputs in the wrong order or too much, or they overlap badly, and they rush, and the car's balance is terrible. And if you're trying to go fast too quickly, you make the car's balance worse through all of your own actions, and you have a harder time building up confident muscle memory because every time you do something to the car, it feels terrible, so that you get scared and you slow down even more. Like your lap time is generally slower, you're more frustrated, it's harder to replicate what you did before, yada, 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 right? Driving is nothing but driving around in a fancy circle as consistently as possible. So all we're really doing is trying to stop in the same place and turn in the same place and accelerate in the same place. So the car will do the same thing repeatedly. And if you don't have good references and you're not consistent in how you do things at a slower speed, it is absolutely impossible to do them at a faster speed. Your brain subconsciously actually doesn't even know if you're doing it correctly, because you go into a corner at full speed and what your brain is doing is it's looking for a reference of, did I die the last time? And if you don't have the car in the right place, it doesn't know. So you just are kind of guessing. And if the car drives off the track because you don't have a reference of like, it should have been over here and now I'm over there, you don't know what you need to change. So you just kind of drive away from this corner with no information. You do that enough times, you find yourself getting irritated because you don't really know what to fix. So, this is something that Brian really leans on heavily, and we also reinforce across all the coaches, is starting slow and driving with a certain degree of accuracy of putting the car in the right place. Because if you can't get the car to follow the racing line slowly, what makes you think you're miraculously going to be able to do it at speed? You won't know what to adjust, you won't know what to adapt, and you're just going to drive badly, and the lap time is going to show everyone, and so it's not even going to help anyone. Right? So it helps you build up that confidence of, I know where I should be, and then we can work on like, what are the things I need to change, Davin or said coach, to achieve the lap time I'm trying to aim for, right? Your lap time is just going to be an execution of delivering techniques at a high level. So in reality, what we're really going to be leaning on largely are fundamentals a lot. And so please don't get mad at us if we ask like, well, let's take a look at your line, because that's a large part of it, right? Don't get mad at us if we say, hey, let's take a look at where your references are, because it's a large part of it. Don't get mad at us if we say, let's take a look about how you're balancing the car, because that's a large part of it. And really, all high level drivers are doing are taking fundamental skills and executing them at a high, consistent level. I want you to be able to do that too. But if you just rush and are clumsy, you slow. Make sense?
Sounds good, Davin.
All right. Any coaches want to add anything to that?
No, I think you've done a great job.
All right.
I would say that to a certain extent, driving slower helps you with accuracy on being able to place the car where you want to put it, and it becomes a bit of a timing thing as you begin to gain speed and add, more effort into what you're doing. So initially, when you're on your outlaps, try to drive smooth and consistent and accurate, so that you have it in your mind's eye of what it looked like to go around the track and not be fighting the car initially. And then as you begin to gain your confidence, the speed will build upon that.
All right. There's a lot of technical things that we can talk about later about cars, and it takes a while to really understand it because driving cars fast is not a very natural thing. So I'm not expecting you to have a mechanical engineering background or really understand things. There's a reason why professional race car drivers have engineers to do all the hard mechanical things for them, right? We have links to some resources for you here and there. We will try to find ways to explain certain things in a simplistic way, but the reason why I bring up the racing line is like most of you, the best you've seen as far as the racing line has been like the on-screen, brake line thing in the middle of the screen on like Forza and stuff, and that's not the optimal line, and no one's explained to you why you drive the optimal line, so you just are lost, right? So I want to start with that. The other thing is that we intentionally don't lean a lot on setups as rookies because, frankly, most of your lap time loss is poor fundamentals. The baseline setups in the game are drivable. They When you have a higher level of skill, you can exploit custom setups kind of like the difference between like a suit you buy from the store and a fitted suit, right? Like they both still look nice, but one really is attuned to you and the other one just kind of fits, right? And so, especially at like newer levels of driving and lower levels of driving, for most of you, I'm just gonna dab in this. You're just driving badly. And so we can clean up a lot of your base driving by showing you how to be like more aware of things and like what you should be looking at more so than just like making a setup change to kind of artificially handicap you when you would still be driving badly. So I'm not going to say like don't change the setup in your car because I can't stop you. But if you don't have good fundamentals in your driving, no setup will matter. It really won't. And there are times where I will take the default aggressive and just blow the doors off of people because I can drive better than them. And I want you to be able to do that too. So I try to help you focus more on your driving than setups. When you start to talk to more experienced drivers, they will lean more on setups because they know how to drive. So they assume that you know how to drive. And that might not always be the case yet. So keep that in mind, right? Like you're going to talk to people around here who are going to straight up say like, here's some meta thing you should do. By the way, meta means most efficient tactic available. So it's whatever works best. People always screw that up and I don't understand why. But, they'll say like, here, do this and that and this and that. But if you can't drive, it won't matter, right? The reason why in rookie setup during the season, I will share with you any setup that I have is because, first of all, it gets that bug out of your brain, right? Oh, Devin's only beating me because he's got a nice setup. I will give you everything that I have because I am fairly confident that my driving will allow me to overcome that. If not, that's good actually because that gives me something to work on, right? But I want to get that out of your head that like, oh, it was just this custom setup of blah 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 blah. Plus, it can give you a good reference sometimes because like there are some times where we'll make a change to the car that is significantly different than what's in the default aggressive because I want a specific thing. But most of the time, it's because I have the driving ability to purposely make the car do a thing, and therefore I need the setup to then work with me to get the most out of said thing. Not I couldn't do it at all, and now I have a setup to make me do it. Does that make sense to folks?
Yes, sir.
Hooray! Hooray!
And
Hey,
to
Devin.
add to that,
Yes. What's
Oh,
up?
I was going to say to add to that too, as I might talk about it later on, but you did emphasize some of it that all the coaches here have driven all those Ricky cars. So just because one coach is in a specific car doesn't mean he can't help you in the car that you're in. A good example, if I'm in the Ferrari and you're in the McLaren, and you're just like, well, I won't ask Brian because he's racing the Ferrari or in the Ferrari a lot. No, all the coaches have been in a lot of those cars. And I can't speak for everybody, but I've tried every single car and I've raced every single one of those cars. So has Davin. I'm not too sure on Larry. He'll have to speak for himself. And I know Michael has. So, but just remember that that's kind of like the importance that we're just trying to say that we're racing around on those cars really well because we've raced all those cars.
Michael, you had something.
yes, for a setup. So, like Devin says, start on the aggressive setup, but if you want to make change to it and then you see you're faster, make sure you have your line, your line because maybe you're just faster because you're just driving better because you're starting to get more lap. Might not be even the setup that make you faster. So just focus on your line and keep your setup.
There's one thing that I will say often is the stopwatch will tell me the truth. And if you're 8 seconds off me, let's say, and you get more comfortable in the car, you're just going to go faster. So some people, like Michael says, kind of have an inappropriate relationship between the setup and their own ability because it's like they made a setup change that actually doesn't make them any faster. And in some cases, they've made the car handle worse. They were just driving so under the limit before that just by getting more comfortable, they're naturally going faster. And they're like, oh, it must be that rear wing. No, it's because you're actually using all the track now, or you're actually braking properly now, or whatever, right? Um, it's those like last little bits of time that are hard. So TLDR, before we kind of go too far on this, the slower you are, the more we can help you because the easier it is for us to see what your problem is. Right? You're really far off the line. Your braking's really bad. You've missed an apex. You are cornering too slow. You're shifting in the wrong place. Like everyone will be able to see that thing, and it will be easy for us to help you. It's the people like up at the top level, like with Michael, right? If you tried to ask me what's the difference between me and Michael's lap time, it's hard because it's very small margins. It might be half a tenth per corner somewhere. It could be one corner. It could be, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out half the time, right? That's actually hard. But when you're slow, that's a perfect time to ask for help, especially if you're super slow, because we will be able to help you. We'll be able to see it right away. I'll just be like, oh my God, you brake at the 300 and everyone else is braking at the 150. Let's figure out why you think you need to brake there. Let's get you braking a little more deeply. Let's figure out all of that, right? Like, you guys never driven race cars before. You don't know what they can do sometimes. So we're here to help. If you want it, right? So I'll repeat that. Like, if you are really slow but are having a great time, I'm happy that you're happy. But if you are really slow and you would like to go faster, ask. Okay. Larry, you've got a couple things you're going to talk about in a little bit about settings for ACC. Are you ready?
I don't have any chips in my mouth, so let's go.
Yay, let's do it. Larry, you talking for a while.
All right. So, as everybody knows, the game does not come with a manual. It's kind of hit and miss sometimes when you look at certain things. Certain things don't make sense, like video settings, audio settings, the gamut. So we have come up with a little bit of a situation where there are certain things that will benefit your PC more than you think they might, as far as how much your PC has to work. That's under video settings. We have the HUD settings showing here now. If you don't have your game open, or if you want to go over the specific settings, I almost have it down verbatim. But when it really comes down to it, there are certain things that we need to be, as far as set mandatory, to help you in the long run, and or for us to communicate with you, or just as an instance here, we're showing the pit limiter as a check mark, and at the bottom of the screen it says check marks are mandatory. Now, the reason why we say check marks are mandatory is because with the pit limiter, we want you to be able to do a pit stop correctly. You need to be able to get the car slowed down in first gear below the speed limit, then put the pit limiter on so that you don't go over the pit speed limit while you're in pit lane. It's something that you should actually practice as far as driving and being cognizant or understand where the pit line is, being able to stop your car properly in the pit lane, because you can actually get really frustrated if you don't park the car properly, if you don't turn off the ignition, if you do have a manual setup in that sort of situation. There's all kinds of gamut things. So if you guys want to kind of go over these a little bit, I will be fully available all for later tonight to do it. If you guys want to do it in a group, that's cool. If you want to do it individually because you have free time tomorrow, that's fine. I just want to make sure that your game is set up to the best that we can get you started on, so that you don't have any glitches or weird shit happen in day of race. That's one of the reasons why I try and go over all these things. Right now I see circuit map is a check mark. We need to have that set to full. That helps you if there's an accident or something of that nature. If you try to roll back into the track and you're trying to do a safe rejoin, if you don't have room and somebody comes blazing up behind you, it's going to be a big kerfuffle. There's a giant accident waiting to happen. If you have the map set to full, you have a better chance of finding a big open spot. You may be losing places on track. That's part of the game. So there are several things that need to be adjusted. And like I said, if you guys want to go over them specifically, we can. So if you want to go ahead, is there another slide for this next one, Davin?
There is.
Okay. The general settings has to do with helping you understand your replays, and please, please, please use your replays to your benefit. It makes so much sense for, like I had mentioned earlier, where if I'm following you 3 or 4 laps at a time around a specific track, and I see that you're offline, or you may be braking a little early or something like that, and you're not quite sure on the track how to do what, I will try to give you a reference so that you can see the difference, like one behind the other. Because if I just get out in front of you and I just drive away, it's hard for you to watch me while you're trying to drive the car. But if you go back and look at a replay, position left to right, or how to turn into a corner, or something of that nature, just a visual can make a giant difference sometimes. in the audio settings, I have come up with what appears to be a good reference point or starting point for the audio to blend with Discord, so that if I'm helping you or if Davin's helping you or something of that nature, and you're riding in the car with me, and there's a way to do that for those of you who don't know, you could actually watch me drive from several camera angles and we can have a conversation, but you can also hear the car, but it's also not so loud that you can't hear me, or it's not so quiet you can't hear to shift. So that's the kind of thing that we're kind of talking about with these particular settings. If you want to go over these settings, I'll go over every bit of it tonight with you. If you want, we can do it over the rest of the weekend. What is next, sir?
We've got only one more on video.
Okay. Now, this one is something that will help the PC work a little easier. We found that, or at least some of the reading that I've been doing, shows that on the Epic settings in your video area is kind of like eye candy for video replays, meaning something that you're going to produce for YouTube to make it look the best, or say pictures that you may be snipping out from, say, a part of your driving and that sort of thing. But there's enough of a horsepower difference kind of from the PC between Epic and High that it might help you if you have a possible problem with stuttering or issues with, overall performance on your PC if you don't have, say a mid-high to high-end PC that runs the game fairly well. A lot of it comes from the mirrors themselves. We find that turning the numbers down here and having a good distance, which is the second red line that you see, you really don't need to see the guy behind you, whether or not he's got a purple shirt on. You just need to know he's behind you. But if your mirror view distance isn't high enough, the guy comes up behind you, he's at 4 car lengths, 5 car lengths, you don't see him, but when he gets to 3, the car pops up behind you. So that distance behind you is just a bit of a reference where you look up, kind of like in traffic, and you see that moron that's doing 190 coming down the interstate, and you're only doing 70. You need to know where he's coming from to begin with. You need heads up to know that the car behind you is not really in an attacking fashion, but more of a general reference of, hey, there's somebody back there. And like I said, if the number's too low, the car just all of a sudden pops in. Now, another one that's extremely important is the opponent's visibility. Most of you, or I would say 99% of you that haven't adjusted this number, you're trying to have your PC draw all the cars on the track even though you can't see them. And it makes absolutely no sense for your CPU to do that much work if it's not going to be a benefit to you. So I would recommend, now you may find that the numbers are slightly different, and maybe Ilpo could help us here with this a little bit. If you keep the numbers low or lower within the 20 or so range, especially during the starts, it makes it easier for your PC to work without having to start chugging, losing FPS, become a very stuttery slideshow mess. And then as the cars spread out around the track, it makes it easier for your PC to run the game. So if nothing else you take away from this tonight, I would say try lowering that number. And when you're in a larger group in, say, House of Practice or Day of Race, check to make sure that you have at least an FPS counter going. You can get one through Steam. It's fairly easy to find. And all it is a number that runs in the upper right-hand or left-hand corner of the screen that really won't bother you. And just kind of keep an eye on it to find out the performance of your PC. And that's the biggest reason why we try to adjust these settings here. But if you have anything on Epic and you're having trouble with your game running, try knocking it down to high on all the settings that are Epic and see if it makes a difference.
All right. Very good. All right.
Also, I can go over a lot of the settings that might help you with your wheel and pedals and that sort of thing to at least help you make sure that they're calibrated and to make sure that you're not going to have any issues with them running day one of the races.
All right. So I want to take a 1 minute intermission and see if Ilpo's here. Ilpo, are you here, buddy? Okay, so he may not be here, but you guys should.
Well, his name is in the
Yeah,
list,
his
and he
name
might be
is in the list.
listening.
So I'm trying to give him a minute. But you guys should love Ilpo. So we have a really strong stewarding team here at NASRS, and on our Tuesday leagues, they help us with live stewarding. So we have stewards that help and ride on board with us through the races and add penalties for incidents, and they provide a penalty sheet at the end of the race, which I highly recommend as the rookies you review, just to get a sense for like what is a penalty and why and what isn't. In rookies, Ilpo will come during our post-race debriefs and will give his perspective of a steward of what he thinks, how things would be judged. We try to give a balance of church and state a lot in rookies. So traditionally, like myself or a few other drivers will give like the racer response, but Ilpo will also additionally augment that with the stewarding response because the objective really is to get you through rookies when you feel comfortable and up into Tuesdays where you run in the Tuesday split. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in just a minute, but it's just important to kind of know those things. And so occasionally, like if he's here, I'll stop here and have him do it. But if not, you'll hear him at some point eventually, where he'll give that perspective. It's good to know just because racing etiquette is not a thing that a lot of you probably have been exposed to. Um, you know, initially you're going to get a lot of bumps and bangs and stuff, and 99% of them are going to just be honest mistakes. And as you start to race more, you will start to see that some things are okay and some things are not okay. And, rookies is going to be the place where you learn a lot of that without like a strict penalty. But, the goal should be to learn about those penalties over time so that when you do move into Tuesdays or if you end up racing somewhere else, you're not like caught off guard of like, oh, I ran to the back of this guy. Why did I get such a heavy penalty for this? Things like that. So, Ilpo, I'm giving you carte blanche to interrupt me if you come back and decide that you don't like something I said. So, um, one thing I want to talk about is like what the purpose of rookies is, because this is a thing that is different for NASRS for compared to other leagues. So, our rookie class is more of a class of learning, right? I don't have a minimum criteria or a maximum criteria for folks entering rookies. The idea is you come to race in rookies specifically because you want to learn from the community drivers we have here to improve your racing in some capacity. So I'm there in rookies as a coach to give you a reference of like how fast the car can generally go. Michael is the same, Brian is the same. So you're not racing us really. We're just there to help you because it can be easy when you're running with people who are let's say 106, 107% off the pace to think, "Oh, this is as fast as the car can go." And we just want to give you a perspective of what that is. We're also a little bit of a reference for confidence because, like for example, I'm typically within the top 8 to 10 on Tuesdays, somewhere around in there. And so, if you're racing with me, you have a general idea of kind of where you would be pace wise, right? We're going to be running the same track that the Tuesday guys are running. You guys have the most time to practice, so your race is last at the end of the week. So if you have had the time, you can review the Tuesday race. If Jackson has a chance to do the commentary, you can watch the stream of the Tuesday race, right? You can kind of see how
Woo!
fast we were. Oh yeah, the commentary is great, dude. Jackson's amazing. I love him. Like shout out to Jackson, he's great.
Can I jump in that really
Yeah,
quickly?
jump.
Okay. Hi, for those that don't know, yes, I'm Jackson. I've been doing esports commentary for about 3-4 years now. I managed to come back and Larry and Davin have been awesome and let me cover Tuesday splits. I'm gonna be with you guys driving on Thursdays, but I think the best advice I could give is for you guys to join me and Elliot in watching, and it's gonna give you a lot of really good feedback on what you could do better. Watching kind of the Tuesday split go, sometimes maybe what not to do, but you're always going to get great data one way or another. So yeah, watch us.
100%, right? What rookies really isn't is like being sweaty because you're going to impress me by your ability to like learn and grow as a driver, not necessarily how fast you are. There are fast assholes. I don't want you to be one of those, right? I really want you to be focused on developing, right? So you're gonna run up against people who are gonna blow your doors off. I'm not gonna feel bad about that because that's a reference for you to figure out how to do it better. if you come work with us, we can teach you how to drive like that person. But I'm not going to be the sort of person that you're going to come to me and be like, so and so is too fast. You shouldn't be here. Blah 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 blah. Like I have a short list of folks who have like learned the things they need to learn and need to push themselves, and so I will like encourage them gently to move to Tuesdays. But there's no criteria, right? And sometimes I will ask folks to do it if they've been in rookies for an extremely long time and they've like picked up the base skills, and I want to open up spots because, like for example, we're full this season for rookies, so there are 50 people registered. That is great. We've actually had races where all 50 people have shown up. That is fantastic. They actually sometimes haven't even been total disasters, which is great, especially if you've been listening and practiced, which is amazing. But after a while, you need to, steel sharpens steel, right? You need to push yourself and jump into a faster group so you get used to running at that pace and running with those techniques and running with that aggression so it becomes normal. So, I will flag some of those people from time to time. And you'll also hear me in the commentary of like the post race debriefs tell you, right? Brian Crane's here. A few of the other regulars are here. They'll know this from experience. Driving is something that's really important to me. I've been racing for 2 decades. I will never bullshit you on how I think you're doing. It's just not a thing I do. If I say I think you're doing a good job, I genuinely think you're doing a good job. I also will tell you if I think something is terrible. I will try to be delicate about it, but often I will ask you, do you want the Davin answer or do you want the NASRS answer? Right? And so, for a point of perspective, the NASRS answer would be like, you're doing great. Like you're consistent. That's really great. The Davin answer is you've missed 4 apexes in 3, 4, 7, and 9, and your braking sucks in 10. So depending on your level of appetite for feedback, I will adjust accordingly. And if you don't ask me, a lot of times I won't say anything because the lap timer will tell me because you are 9 seconds off the pace, and that should be a clear indicator that some improvement needs to be made in some way, right? But that is up to you. So keep this in mind as you're going through rookies. There's also like not a requirement for you to stay in rookies either. So like if you are in the middle of the season and you say, you know what, I want to go run with the fast guys, please do. Like I'm not kicking you out. Like I'm encouraging that. If that's the goal, right? If you want to go do that, that's great. If you get beaten up a lot and decide you want to come back, come back. I'm never going to be like, oh my god, why did you come back? Right? So that's the thing. One of the things that is important here is one of the reasons why we have only 4 cars in rookies. We have the Ferrari with the Lexus, we have the McLaren, and we have the Mercedes. Is because we want you guys focused on your driving. So we've intentionally picked old, we call them D-Evo, out of sequence cars, so you're not fishing around hunting for setups. Like there are some available we can help you with, but we're trying to get you to drive, right? It's if you want to drive the Porsche, for example, go to Tuesdays. I'm not telling you can't come here and drive the Porsche. I'm telling you that the Porsche requires certain advanced techniques to drive well that most of you can't do, and you're bad at them. And I'd like for you to be good at them, so I want to teach you how to handle a car, and then you can go drive the Porsche and run in Tuesdays, and you will have a much better time. But if you are wondering why there is a car not in the rookie list, it's because we've tested it and either found that it was difficult for new people to drive, or it was like significantly slower than everything around, even with the fast guys driving it, and so you wouldn't notice the improvement as much. But I have won in every single car in the rookie lineup, so they all can win. We've done that by design, right? They're all generally about the same pace as one another, so that's not going to be your limiting factor. And to be tactful about it, most of you are so early in your driving journey, you could pick any car and learn these things. So don't worry about it. Right? So if you had questions of like why we set it up that way, it's mostly for your benefit. It also reduces the amount of cars that the coaches have to learn because there's a lot of cars in the game. And also it makes it very easy for us to identify who's new. Because if I see a 488 on a track, I know that's a rookie. If I see a Lexus, I know that's a rookie, right? If I see a first gen AMG, I know that's a rookie. And so I will pay you additional attention. And depending on how you ask, I will help you or just make a mental note. Like, hey, coaches, so and so is having trouble with this, and this, and they don't seem to ask. Maybe somebody give them a gentle nudge if they are receptive. Yeah. Questions?
All good, Davin.
Oh, yay. So this is either great or you're all asleep. So, okay. Great. All right, so practice format. You don't know this, but we have changed some things. So we have reduced our practice time. So every race has the same format. This is always going to be the same. Don't worry about this part. So we have practice, qualifying, the race, and that's it, right? So we have a 30-minute practice session, we have a 20-minute qualifying session, we have 65-minute races. There's a mandatory pit stop where fuel is required, but tires are optional. I'm going to take an asterisk with this and tell you this now. Keep this in your mind. This will never change. The earlier you ask me about these things, the more information I will give you. The closer we come to race day, the less information I will give you. So if you come to me on Thursday and say, should I take tires? I'll go, that's a choice you can make. Because everyone has had the chance to prepare and you have not. And so that's the punishment, right? I want you to get into the habit of like preparing and learning to ask questions and like learning what the event configuration information is and doing all of these things. And so like I'm not trying to make your life hard, but you have made your life hard. So this is the penalty for having a hard life, right? Things of that nature.
Being prepared is part of practicing.
Yep. Yep. The more prepared you are, the better friends will be, right? I'm happy to help you if I know you're prepared. If you're just being lazy and expecting me to play the game for you, just let me play the game. I want you to be prepared, right? Like, that's all I'm saying. Pit stops are manual, and they always will be. So you need to practice them on the practice server that is available for you to practice doing pit stops. The recommendation I give to everybody, honestly, is drive in the pits almost every time. Try to not RTG unless your car is completely broken. Because you need to know where the pit lane line is. You need to know where you need to brake to slow down to like maximize that time. You need to be comfortable with how long the pit lane is, where the pit line exit line is, where the crossover lines are, and how to stay on the left side or stay on the right side of them. Those things are important and will save you operational time in the races by a significant amount. Getting a drive-through sucks and ruins your races. And it's a needless penalty that you gave yourself. So after a while, I'll poke and tease you about it if you mess up drive-through penalties multiple times. Because it's like, come on, man, you did it once, stop doing it again, right? Also, like, it is much easier to save time in the pits than it is on the racetrack because trying to get a second of race time is hard. Trying to get a second of pit time is easy. You should make
Knowing that Spa has 2 pit lines is important.
Yes, this also important. Like knowing the type of pit formation you have, where your pit box is. Like, I'm not just talking for talking. I've seen people screw these things up and lose races that they easily could have won just by not practicing and being kind of lazy. So I would like for you to avoid that. If you have to learn through the difficult process of making this mistake, that is fine. I wish you wouldn't have to, but sometimes people just do. At the end of every session, there is a 200-second break between every session. So that is 3.5 minutes. That is time to give you a chance to like check your setups, go to the bathroom, get water, just unwind for a little bit, right? Like I'm not here to rush you from session to session. So don't ask me to speak that out. Right, that is there for your benefit. Right, if you go from the qualifying to the race and you haven't changed from quali fuel to race fuel, you had 6 minutes between the session timers to do that. So you didn't do anything. Your head was not in the game to play the game. So you will learn and fix it the next time. But I give you ample time to be able to do those things. Uh, if slash when you decide to move to Tuesdays, like the qualifying time is shortened and other things like that, right? So if you practice effectively in rookies how you're planning to race in other classes, the transition will be extremely easy. If you don't, it will be as difficult as you make it. Any questions?
All good, Devin.
All right. All right. So qualifying, I just want to talk about this because some of you have never qualified before in your life. So qualifying is a time attack session. It is not a race. We need to find a clear space on the racetrack for you to drive as fast as you can uninterrupted. There are several videos on the NASRS YouTube channel about how to qualify a car. Go watch them. I have done a long version and I have done a short version. And the short versions clearly say short version. So go do that. Everyone's responsible for their own gap when they're there. We have a couple of rules about how to qualify the car and like how to negotiate around other cars, which I'll talk to in just a minute. But the sooner you understand that we need to not really be interfering with each other in qualifying, the better you will qualify and the better your race will go. So that'll be good, right? Right. One big etiquette thing that will make you very popular if you pay attention is paying attention. So when you leave the pits, from now to the last time you ever play a racing game ever, your first lap out of the pits is called an out lap. That doesn't count. It's your untimed lap. You haven't broken the timing beam. It doesn't count for a lap time. That lap will always be slow. And you will always be in the way of anybody ever doing a time lap. And if you are on your out lap, just sitting in the way, people will eventually not like you. And I want you to be liked. So as you are leaving the pits, pay attention to cars coming down the straightaway because they are moving fast. Get used to looking at your mini map as cars are coming down the straightaway because they are coming. We'll talk about the mini map and the dots and the colors and all that other fun stuff in a minute, but there are clear indicators that race cars are coming, right? And we'll teach you some more tactics and the debriefs and other things about how to use your MFD and other things to benefit you there too. But there's more than enough information to know what's going on. Please know what's going on. Right? Also, be aware of cars when you are starting your own lap. You are not the only car on the racetrack, so it is super rude to just sit slow in the last sector when other cars are building up a gap. When cars are leaving to start their lap, they do this preparation lap on their out lap where they're building gaps and like trying to give themselves space so they can run uninterrupted. So if you just come to a stop to give more of a gap at the last minute, you're being very rude because now everyone else is bunched up behind you. And depending on who is bunched up behind you, your life can become extremely stressful. So, like, if you are slow and you park it in sector 3 in front of me, God help you. Right? Because I will be pushing you down into turn 1 at full speed because that was super rude. And you won't like it, and I won't like it because it ruins my lap, and I gotta start over, and it's a blah, right? So don't be that person. From the start of qualifying all the way to the end of the race, we don't use any of the in-game chats. When you are here in voice chat with us here in Ricky Chat, we don't use any of the voice channels. I totally understand that you're sorry. I totally understand that it's been as frustrating. I totally understand. If you want to go to another DM and talk with your friends, great. You want to hang out in social channel, great. But I need a quiet place for folks to focus if they want to focus and then be around for the debriefs after. So that is the only time I will actively yell at you. I'm pretty chill about most things. Like I might be really passionate about a few things, but I'm actually pretty relaxed about most things. If you talk during the race, I will yell at you. What did I just say?
If we talk during the race, you'll yell at us.
Ah, there we go. Someone was listening.
Daddy's home.
Hooray! Hooray! It is the only time. It is the only time. It is the only time I'm going to yell at you about that. So if you don't do that, we will get along swimmingly, right? But it's out of respect of all the other racers who are focusing and practicing that I need you not to be distracting with stupid crap. So don't give me stupid crap to yell at you about, and I won't yell at you. But I'm amazing.
Does that apply in Discord too, or just for the ACC game chat?
Just for the ACC game. That's a great question. Just for the ACC game chat. Like, if you can't help yourself, go into the Discord chats and talk there because you're not disrupting people. Still, all of the social rules of NASRS still apply, right? So, like, if you're frustrated, use the gentleman rule and wait 24 hours. I don't need that bullshit in there. If you're asking for clarity or like just apologizing or like normal, cordial, nice stuff, knock yourself out. But if you're like feeling some sort of way, feel some sort of way at home for a day and then come back and see if you still feel that some sort of way because it's a video game, so it's not that serious, right? And we'll there are proper methods and ways to get clarity on stuff. I'm not just saying like never talk, but like don't make me parent you, and everything will be fantastic. Great. Any other questions about that? Great. All right. One thing I do want to talk about, and if I cover it later in the driver's briefing, I'll just blow through it quickly because we don't need to spend too much time on it. It's the mini map. So Larry mentioned earlier, have your mini map set default. So we're all going to do that, right? The mini map's got dots driving around, which represent cars, right? And all of those dots are different colors. and I'm sure I have a slide on this somewhere, but I just don't want to forget to talk about this. You need to know what those colors mean when you're qualifying because it's really, really important and can be counterintuitive. So you have basically two modes to think about. You have cars that are on a hot lap, or what we call a timed lap, like their lap counts for something. And then you have cars that are on an invalid lap. They've either broken track limits or they're on an out lap. Their lap will not count for something. If you are on a hot lap, your map will show a car on a gray dot. So if you and I are racing and I'm on a hot lap, my dot will be gray. If I invalidate myself, my dot will be blue. If you are qualifying and you encounter another car on a hot lap, you cannot pass that car. So just because you planned your gap badly and caught a slow car that's on a time lap, that means you need to learn how to build gaps. And you have to bail out and start over. Sucks, but you should have paid attention to the roster before you went out. You should have managed your gap better. You should know who you're qualifying around. Life lesson learned. If you come up against a car that's on an invalid lap, so someone's on their out lap, someone's invalidated, whatever, their lap's not going to count anyway, you have the right to pass them, but it may not be to your benefit because all of the kerfuffle time you'll spend floating around with the car in front, you're just burning usable race time. If you have a crash in there, it might be on you. That's a problem. Then you have to start the whole procedure all over again, right? So, learning how to just sit offline and not be in the flow of traffic while cars are going by can be a benefit for you. Kind of learning how to manage the traffic and the cars around you can be a benefit for you. There are methods for you to drive by. Like sometimes, like I'll be on an out lap and I'm in a weird spot, and you'll see me pull offline and let a bunch of cars drive by so that I can slot into a free open space, so I don't lose any time. Really, right? That's a thing, right? But if I'm on my time lap and I come up against, let's say, Adam or someone, and he's on his time lap, that sucks for Davin, and that's just too bad. Right? So be mindful of that. Some of you will forget that, and in rookies, that's no big deal. In Tuesdays, that will become a significant deal, and you don't want that to be your deal. So, any questions about that?
I actually want to jump in here.
Yay! Hi.
On the colors of the dots. So ever since the patch that I did, the Nordschleife, they are unreliable. It might show the color of an invalidated lap for a car that is still on a valid lap. So you can't fully rely on them, but it works like if it shows someone on a valid lap, they definitely are on a valid lap. If it shows someone as invalid, they might be on a valid lap or they might be on an invalid lap.
Good to know. Good to know. Good to know. For folks who don't know, this is Ilpo. He's our head steward. Probably one of the best damn stewards I've ever seen. So, the guy knows his shit. Races a bunch of places. Just rely on his information. He's got a lot of it. Okay. So let's talk real briefly about the race. We are almost through. I appreciate all of you guys for hanging in here. This will be the most time I will ever talk to you in a big, long period. So I appreciate you bearing with me here. All right, so first thing we want to talk about is warm-up laps, or what's called the formation lap. So at the beginning of every race, after you are done with your pre-race setup and everything, we go through a formation lap, which is that untimed lap before the start of the race. This is where you warm up your tires and brakes, where you will like drag your brake to warm up your brakes and warm up your tires. A couple important things that you just need to pay attention to. Collisions are off during this period, so you can ghost through other cars, but please don't, because it is setting the order of the grid of the race. If you ghost through cars, it becomes very tricky and complicated for clearing penalties and other things. In rookies, I don't have the ability to clear them myself because I'm driving, so I can't help you. And on Tuesdays, most of the time they get cleared if they're silly, but you should get in the habit of paying attention to the car in front of you and being around them. There is a tool widget that you will see very frequently on the middle of your screen that explains like your grid spot and stuff. Drive to that widget. ACC doesn't care about the other cars around you. It cares about where you are in the widget. So if you're doing your warm-up lap and it says you're in the green, you're good. But if you're out of the green, like doesn't matter what everybody else does. Doesn't matter if I come to a complete stop and it throws you in the red. The game's gonna penalize you because it's like you're not paying attention to me, no matter where it starts to calibrate. So, one of the reasons that we have a lot of coaches here is typically they qualify closer to the front. They can help to manage the formation lab. It kind of helps, right? But I want you to start to get in the habit of not only understanding how things work in ideal circumstances, but also ACC isms that you just need to be aware of so that you're not caught out. It'll save you a lot of stress and headache. Right? There's also a 70 km/h start speed that the races start at. I think that's the same for all the tracks. I know Bo can correct me if I'm wrong there. But getting used to that start procedure is going to be very important. Uh, that's probably the one time that I sometimes recommend doing a single player start sort of thing. Every once in a while, we'll do like a fake race start or something along the same lines to get you used to that. But I want you to get used to the UI. I want you to get used to all the widgets. I want you to get used to those sort of dynamics, right? I will remind you of these things before every rookie race. I'll probably add more graphics as I think of them, so you're not required to memorize everything I say. But warm up lap, pay attention, a good chance to prepare.
Actually, that idea of doing at least one AI race with a full lap start, you would want to start, say, mid-pack to 3/4 towards the back. Also, that will help you understand how to use the widget, and at certain tracks, the the timing of when everybody needs to go from single file to double file, everybody comes rushing up to the pack, and they're like, oh no, what happened? Where'd these cars come from? You can actually lose the car and not be in the proper position. So learning how to use the widget when you're, say, slightly further back than mid-pack, because that's how some of the rear of the pack, yeah, the concertina effect, actually, that's exactly correct. It's one of those situations where you all of a sudden roll up on all the cars, and then you're either over the speed limit, you could be out of position left to right, you could actually slide the car and do weird shit. So kind of do a one or two AI race starts, even if you just do the start portion, quit and go back in again and redo it, just to kind of get used to how the flow of it works. It makes a big difference.
The only thing I will say about that, just as a difference, because I need you to be aware of these things, is that in single player, there's a limiter that will kick in that stops you from just like driving through a bunch of AI cars that does not exist in multiplayer starts. So if you're doing AI starts, you're just using it to like being used to being in the pack and like getting your car in the right space and staying with the car that you're with and like working on nerves and other things like that, right? So just to be mindful of it, because there are some of you that will do what I said. They'll be used to the limiter start, then they'll go do a start with us here in the race and drive through every car in front of you and be like, that's not something I heard of before. That is no longer true. Right? So just, take your time as you're doing these formation laps, right? Don't be silly, but everything will be fine after that.
By the way, JD's here.
Oh, hey, JD. Oh, my God. Oh, gee. Hi. Okay. Any questions about the warm up lap before I move on? Only got a couple more left.
No, sir.
Okay.
All good.
Okay. So, at some point in your sim racing career, you will lose control of a car. It sucks, but there are things you can do about it that will help you, right? The first thing that you need to do is not throw a tantrum because other people are racing, and I will dislike you if you throw a tantrum. So once your car is beyond the ability to save, you should put both feet in, get on the brakes, stay on the brakes until the car is at a safe stop. It is safer and easier for us to avoid you when you are not moving, because now I know that you are just a physical object and I can avoid said physical object. I also cannot predict the future. So if you just randomly start moving, I don't know you were going to do that because I didn't expect for you to lose your control of your car in the first place, and we are more likely to crash. So please wait until all cars have driven by and then get back on the track in a safe and open space. It's the first thing. If you hold your brakes when you spin, I don't care if the spin's a disaster. I will praise you in the post-race debrief as being the most cautious person ever. Right? You're already in a plane crash. Plus, crash the plane properly. Right? Rejoining the track. Right? This is super important. I really need you guys to really pay attention to this. Super, 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 super. It's like the rules of the road. Rejoin parallel with traffic. Don't go with the flow of traffic. Don't drive perpendicular. Don't do a donut in the track. Don't cross at the apex of a turn. Don't reverse onto the track. Like, some of you are probably rolling your eyes and being like, this sounds obvious. Why are you telling me this? I have seen a lot of people do a bunch of ridiculous things, right? When you've already lost the car, you need to get back in like a smooth and efficient and calm manner. You're already kind of on pause in the race for a bit. You don't need to worry about scrambling to get back to position, right? Typically, also too in Ricky's, like, so many other things will happen to the cars around you. You'll catch someone anyway and it'll be fine. So don't stress yourself out trying to rush back in. Like, no race has ever just been saved because you did something stupid. And normally you end up ruining other people's races, and that sucks because they dedicated time to do their race too. So that's that. Under the circumstances where you can drive your car back to the pits, please do, right? Because, the game penalizes you a lot for returning to garage if you just do it in the middle of the track. It's a needless time penalty a lot of the times if the car is still drivable. I would actually recommend, if you have a chance on House of Practice, if you've driven with damaged cars, to understand kind of what's like minimal damage versus like significant damage. There's like little door dings and stuff that ACC will give you. It's like 2 seconds of damage, 5 seconds of damage, 10 seconds of damage, sometimes even 30 seconds of damage that won't matter really. And like learning how to feel your car and feel that you have control over it is important. Learning how to like be mindful to turn the damage off is important. Things like that. So like, don't just throw a tantrum and immediately return to garage because you hurt your own race for no reason. Right. The only time that I would recommend you do that if your car is unsafe and now you are a hazard to other people. So like if your steering is bent, if your windshield is broken, things like that. Like, it's busted, right? Don't waste your time trying to get back. But if it's not busted, try to stay in the race. All right. Questions about that before I change gear?
Makes sense, Stefan.
Please, guys, if you have any questions, please ask them because it makes it so much easier now.
Legit, no dumb questions. Y'all told me you've never done a lot of racing before, so I'm expecting you guys to have questions. Like, I'm expecting all this to be new to you.
I have a question about, like, whenever on the website it'll tell the start time of the
Yeah.
race. Is that like when practice starts or when the race starts?
That's when practice starts. That's when the server opens. Yeah, and that time is also calibrated to your local time on your machine.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, great question. Fantastic. All right, I want to talk about racing and right to space. And before I talk about a lot of this stuff, I actually just want to show you this picture, and then we can talk about it a little bit more. So every league is going to have a different mentality on this, like, sufficient overlap, right? So you can't just take one league and carry it across to other ones. But you're here, so you got to do it the way that I say. So, right? The big thing about overlap here is that we want to make sure that there is significant overlap between the cars before you've kind of earned the right to racing around. You will hear me say a million times, don't hit what you can see, which means make your car visible to your opponent if you want to earn the right to room. Right, so you can see where Opal's made this diagram where it shows that you're pretty much up to the driver's head, where you can see in your field of view without having to use any silly in-game tricks. Right, so I'm not going to take the excuse of like, I was on his bumper, he should use the radar, because he should be looking forward, not at the radar. Right, if you're in his blind spot, same general principle applies. Right, he shouldn't have to play some in-game trick to look back where you are, because he should be looking forward. On the flip side, if you were alongside them close enough, like alongside them early enough in the straightaways or before the turn starts, where I can just look over and see you, well, obviously you've earned the right to racing room. And both cars need to be able to negotiate the corner safely and adjust for one another so they don't die, right? Uh, Overtaking is all about car-to-car communication, right? Two cars are going into a corner, two people are in said cars. Both drivers should be like, hey, buddy, I don't want to crash my car. You don't want to crash your car. Let's make ourselves visible so we can both drive through this turn without crashing our cars. Whether that means someone takes an alternate line, whether that means someone brakes early, whether that means you make an adjustment, that's down to your skill level. But like dive bombing people so that they can't see doesn't help. Being behind them where they can't see doesn't help, right? When you start moving to Tuesdays, there will be penalties that will be assessed based on how close and how clumsy those moves are. And so learning the right etiquette, learning how to race to those rules are important. As you become a more competitive racer, learning to race to the rule book is extremely important. So I would listen about this stuff and pay attention, because sometimes it's a matter of inches of whether you earn the right to room or not, and knowing which inches are yours are important. Any questions?
I would probably want to add to this that this is not F1. If you watch F1, you know the F1 rules, the race to Apex, whatever. None of that applies here. This is GT racing. The GT racing rules are made for mostly for like amateur drivers. F1 is the best of the best in the world. The pros, whatever they do. The rules here are different. They are meant for normal people who are not professional racing drivers who do this every day. So don't think you know the rules just because you watch F1 or you've seen whatever the Netflix series is or whatever. Understand that we are running different rules which are more for like normal people.
Amen. This diagram also will help you when we go through the debrief. So I'm going to talk about that in a second, but one of the big themes on the debrief is learning, right? I'm not here to do a montage of just accidents so we can point and laugh at the other person. I actually will actively skip those if I find you just like wasting the group's time to be like, look, this guy hit me, because you're not learning anything from that incident and we're not learning through the experience. So I'm just not going to take the time, right? But I will take the time if you're like, oh, how did I get hit here? What could I do better differently? What signs could I have seen that this was bad? Could I have passed in a different place? Happy to talk about those. We try to time box the conversation because we like to talk about racing. It'll go for forever. But if you are mindful about like these sort of incidents are designed to help you learn, you will have a great time in rookies and you will go very, very fast. If you've come to troll on other people and try to flex on how fast you are, I will just sick Michael on you, and then you will not be fast anymore and be sad. So don't do that.
Davin, can you look in the chat for the voice
Sure.
channel?
Why? What's
Mike
up?
Michelle had a question. He can't get it off his phone.
Oh, okay. Somebody want to just read me the question? Is it a private question?
I got to do everything for you.
No, I know.
So there's a question about how far into the green. So the rule in our leagues is that your nose, and that means the nose of the car, not the splitter, but the actual like real nose of the car, has to be alongside the driver's head of the car you're trying to pass, or the car you are side by side with. And it's important to understand that the position of the driver in the car is different in different cars as well. So you need to take that into account. So if you're trying to overtake a Ferrari, you need to get a little bit more overlap than this Aston in the picture, for example, because in the Aston the driver is really far back.
Yep. That timing will also be critical too. So we all are going to make this mistake. Even the experienced drivers make these mistakes all the time. Look, I screw up passing too. Everybody does. So we're not going to bag on you for that. I think I've made that point pretty clear. But waiting to the last minute where your opponent has no time to react does not benefit you, right? So my big pet peeve, like my big one, like if you want to annoy me immediately, try to pass me after I've already turned, because my car's already committed into the turn. Physics does not allow me to change direction even if I see you. So if you just like dive to the bottom of the corner when I've already turned in, I can't change direction without doing drastic things. And the crash is pretty inevitable because you're just driving to a fixed point on the track. I also dislike you, like a lot, right? Because you could have waited and found a easier place to do it, right? If you get alongside cars earlier in straights, then it's easier to give everyone time to see and negotiate and communicate before we turn, and then it's like, oh, you got me, right? But if physics have already taken hold and then you just dive, I don't like you very much. So be mindful of that. Some of you have no idea what I'm talking about, but when you hit your first car, you will. So that's a thing. Any questions?
Quick thing about the particular pictures that you're showing, you do have some of these as far as car positioning and that sort of thing. I just can't remember where you put it. I hate to say that.
Yeah,
I'm
they're
supposed to
around.
know
Yeah,
how to
they're
read.
around. Actually, in rookie information, I have an entire thing about the racing rules of conduct with Sebastian Vettel's eyes and says, "Rick, you should read this." I'm like, I wish you would, right? But we have a lot of those in our rules. We have rules about it. Ilpo will correct you if you have made the mistake. I'll help you. It's the same thing, right? So it's an educational thing, right? Like, you're gonna hit cars. We're all sorry. We totally understand. We all make mistakes. Like, no one's here to say you need to race perfectly, right? But we will also try to teach you the tactics of how to do this correctly and not just be like, pass them better next time, right? Because that doesn't really work for you.
I will add something that's useful if you race other places or move to different leagues later on. So while the rule about how much overlap you need varies slightly, like some leagues are like axle to axle, or some are like halfway the door, whatever. The general rule in GT racing is that you need to be there before the lead cars start to turn in. So before they commit to the racing line they're going to take, because these cars cannot really change the line once they start turning. Like once you start going for the corner, there's very little you can do, because if you try to open up the corner, you're going to go off, and that's obviously not how you are supposed to do an overtake to force the other guy to just like miss the corner, go off. So that rule is generally correct everywhere, is that you need the overlap before the lead car makes the turning commitment, like where they start significantly steering into the corner.
Ilpo, I was going to talk about blocking and moving on straights. I didn't ask if you wanted to talk, but do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to do it?
I'll let you talk most of it,
Okay.
because like
no.
it's your presentation. So
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. You're good. Right. The only reason I bring it up now is because there's always going to be a little bit of confusion about defensive moves and also what blocking looks like, right? And so at the end of the day, the primary focus of this is safety. So having cars weaving all over the place makes it difficult to anticipate and predict where your opponents are going to go. It's going to increase the likelihood of crashes, and it's also just extremely unsportsmanlike, right? So effectively, the way that it works is that as you're going down a straight, the car in front, which is effectively the car that's going to be the defending car, is allowed to make one defensive alteration of their racing line. So you can't just react to a chasing car moving back and forth, right? The car attempting to pass has freedom to adjust where they need to. In packs, this gets a little more complicated because, of course, every car is kind of defending on their own. But in a one-on-one situation, you have an attacking car and you have a defending car. So I can make, let's say, if we're going through a right-hand turn, I can move as far to the right as I want once, but I cannot move more to the right the second time. Like if you decide to go even more inside, I can't go any more inside after that. I also cannot go to the left and block you after I've moved to the right. I've made my proclamation. I've said this is where I've decided to make my stand. Where whatever happens to me after, I can, whatever happens afterwards happens. I can, defend under brakes. I can turn in from where I am, but I can't sweave and, kind of swerve to block you out. That's unsportsmanlike and dangerous, yada yada, right? That also being said is back to our earlier point. There needs to be a real gap for the attacking car to have overlap for this to work. So if I make my defensive move, and you decide I'm going to try to take on the inside anyway, and later we will talk about how sometimes it's not always the greatest idea, and you drive into my door, and you're like, but I was alongside him before we turned, depending on the timing and what the stewards say, you may get a penalty from that experience. And we will talk about it. Also in the debriefs, I will give you racing advice. We'll say, hey, there are driving impacts to that may be bad, and you could have made a smarter decision strategically, and we will talk about that. But we need to make sure that we are being sportsmanlike and safe to all of our friends here. We are all friends in one big league, racing together, trying to have fun. You're not going to get anything for being a dick except the fact that I will remember you, and that's not fun. So there you go. Ilbo, did I miss anything?
well, there's a little bit of a gray area for the one move rule, which is you can move back towards the overtaking car. Like if you take the inside, they take the outside, and they commit to the outside line, you can close the space and kind of get closer to them, because that actually increases the safety going into a corner rather than makes it less safe. But yes, otherwise I think you covered most. I would say that, and this is not about the specific topic, but more like, because there's no real prizes here. You're not gonna go to F1 because you won a race, or you're not gonna get the massive monetary prize or whatever. So instead of thinking like that you need to win or you need to beat the other guy senseless or whatever, it should be like, we had a good race. We want to have a good race. Doesn't matter. You might just like be stuck there for the whole race, but if you had a good battle, then what else do you want?
Right, right. The worst thing that happens by giving your opponent space is you both had a good race and had friends, right? So it will be a good habit to adopt, and you will get a lot of respect if you drive that way. So that'll be good. Okie dokie. I already talked about blue flags earlier, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, right? I will also share with you the slides about this. We really talked about the big thing. Really is two things. First of all, for cars that are a lap down being passed by faster cars, stay on the racing line. Be predictable, right? The fast guy drove all the way around the racetrack to get to you. They know what they're doing. Let them do the work. Don't fight them in corners because they're not in the same race as you. And you are increasing your risk if you try to fight the leader. Like, if I drove all the way around the racetrack to catch you, you think I'm going to be slower than you? You think I'm going to go away? That's not going to happen, right? So be mindful of those things. If you are going to let a car go by, lift, once you've exited the corner, lift at like the entry of the following straight. And I mean like 20% off the throttle. It does not have to be this big dramatic thing. Just a breath off the throttle. Like, we're racing. If I get a sniff of blood and see you coming towards me, I'm going already. So I don't need that much help. I just need you to be mindful that I am there and be like off the throttle, and I just go streaming right by, and life is great, right? For cars that are passing blue flag cars, be mindful that you are passing a driver that may not know where to slow down and may not know what they are doing. So it is not always the safest idea to cut in front of a car and get right back on the racing line if they don't they don't exist. Like, they are still physical cars in the virtual space. So you could pass a lap down car, go over on the brakes, and they'll destroy you. So get used to braking offline sometimes, being mindful of the people you're racing around because they'll just sometimes have an accident. They don't even mean to. Right?
One thing to remember about a pass in that type of situation also, we have what's called BOP, or basically a balance of power in the, or excuse me, balance of performance. And the reality of it, basically drag racing somebody down a straightaway, you're not going to just all of a sudden zip past them.
Right.
You have to time it properly. And with the lift that the slower car may give you, it's enough to let you past. But remember, the cars are still pretty much equal. So you have to kind of feel your way past the slower cars.
Right. Like, when I'm going I've seen this happen a lot, right? I catch a slow car. We're going down the straight. They think, oh, Devin's faster than me. He'll just drive by. And we're both full throttle. It's the same full throttle. So I have to wait. And then they're like, well, why'd you wait so long? Well, I have to wait to a point where you're significantly slower, which means getting a better run or attacking you aggressively now. And the farther we go down the straightaway, the more likelihood your risk increases. So this is something that is unique to NASRS and is a individual philosophy of mine. Other people will think differently, and I'm going to put the My League, My Rules hat on here and just have you think of something. But the farther you go down the straightaway, the more likely I assume you don't see me. I expect for you to let me go by at the beginning of straights, not at the end. Why do I want to have a braking duel at the highest possible speed with a guy who doesn't know what he's doing? No. I'm more likely going to die. So if I am going up the straightaway behind you and you're just flat footing it down the straight, I'm going to go, this person's oblivious and has no idea where I am and I'm leading. I would like to win. I will wait until they do something dumb and follow you and put a bunch of pressure on you until you do said dumb thing and drive along my merry way, right? Some people think that they will want to attack at the break zone at the end. Uh, you can do that at your own risk. I think that's kind of silly. Some people will be like, oh yeah, just let me go at the end of the straightaway. Personally, I think they don't really understand how physics and speed work and are taking a ton of risk. But don't do that to me. So that's the thing, right? So if we're ever battling and like all of a sudden I come up and you under brakes at the end of a straight, like unless you just like miss the corner terribly, like the corner goes left and you're just going right and it's a freebie, I'm gonna be observing you to make sure that you don't damage my car because I like my car way more than I like your car, so I don't want you touching my car. You think this is a silly slide. I know somebody here has rolled their eyes and been like, why are you showing me this clearly obvious thing? You will be surprised how when you get focused in on something, you will forget everything around you for a long time. And we will come back in the debrief and I will be like, why did you floor it down the straight? And you will say, I don't even know you were there. Used to it. Happens. I'm not even mad. Just want you to keep this in mind for education. Cool? Cool. Questions?
I will want to add a couple of points on the lift. So
Yes.
first of all, the right time to lift is wait until you're not steering anymore. If you have any steering input, like you're still turning, don't lift because the car behind you is not gonna expect it. Like they are gonna expect that you try to exit the corner as fast as possible because they can't turn any more than you can. So if you're still turning, they are still turning. They can't cut to your inside there. Like if it's same class cars, obviously multi-class is a different story. So you want to start lifting once you have stopped steering, like as soon as you return to like neutral steering, then you can lift and do like a 2-stage lift, like lift just a tiny bit initially so that the car behind sees that he's gaining on you. Because what you're doing is that you're sending a message. You're saying like, "Hey, yo, I'm gonna let you by, but you need to give them time because human reaction time to unexpected stimuli is like a second, maybe a second and a half. So unless you tell them by what you're doing, your inputs, what you're gonna do, like what your intent is, they are not gonna, like they can't read your mind, right? So you lift just a tiny bit, like less than 10%, maybe just enough for them to see that, hey, I'm starting to gain. And then when you see that, you stay on the racing line. As the slower car, always stay on the racing line. Don't pull that aside. It's extremely difficult to overtake someone who does unpredictable things. When you see the faster car pull off the line to overtake you, then you can lift more because now he's not right behind you. So even if it doesn't predict the lift, he's not gonna hit you anymore. So now it's the safe time to like lift more to help them to make sure they pass you before the braking zone. Because the worst thing you can do at that point is to force too wide into the braking zone. Everybody loses when that happens.
One final thing, because Ilpo, you tell me this all the time, is I'm expecting the cars I'm lapping to lift when it loses them the least amount of time. So
That's
if we're in the
perfect
middle
true.
of like a complex set of corners, I'm not expecting you to lift because we need to get through set corners, right? Normally, I'm expecting you to lift in a place that's obvious and safe, that's easy for the fast car to make their way around, where I don't have to do a lot of thinking or additional maneuvering. So there will be times, and this is for the leaders as well, because oh my God, please be mindful of this. The races are long. There will be times where you will need to learn the benefits of waiting and just timing when you approach a car. There will also be times, especially if you race me, where the pace of the field will slow down temporarily so that we have the appropriate time to pass the back marker car. So I do not care how fast we are going. I am trying to win the race. And I just need to get there first. I don't need to win by 35 seconds. I can win by 3. I can win by 1. So there will be times where once you battle people with more experienced racecraft, they will do things to, within the rules, manipulate the pace of the race to their own advantage later. And if you learn from those things, you will have a vast armament of tools to work with other people that other folks have never heard of before. And you will be able to pass them in places they will never even expect. And I want you to have those tools. So we will teach you here how to utilize those things, if that is something that you are interested in doing. So there you go. Okie dokie. Let's see what else. So we talked about this. Ask for help. Yada yada. You get the idea. All right, we're on the last 3 slides. I totally love you for hanging out with me. Thank you. All right, so at the end of every rookie race, we've got this thing called the post-race debrief. I think it's probably one of the most valuable things we do here. It is not mandatory, but it's highly recommended. These are sessions where we are here to learn about things that happened in our race, good and bad. So it's not just like show me bad things, right? We do have a little bit of order that needs to happen of these. So folks will send me a DM with their car number, the timestamp, and if they are super special, the turn number that they are in. And if they know that, I love them a lot, right? And we will go through them, and Ilpo will provide his feedback. I'll provide mine. Larry will provide mine. We'll ask you like your point of view of what you were thinking, and that's not to judge you. It's to ground the conversation in some context. So you try to make a pass, you drive in the back of somebody. I'll come in and be like, walk me through what you're thinking. That's not to shame you. It's just to be like, why did you try to make this move? Why did you think that this was going to work or not work? That way we can understand, and the group can also understand, like, oh yeah, I would have done that, or like, oh no, that didn't make any sense. And then we'll build off that, and then we'll give you some practical tip that you can take with you. A lot of places charge you for this sort of insight. We don't, because we want you to learn and be successful racers. Uh, Sometimes the debriefs can go on for a while, and we've tried to do a better job at shortening the time. I say that ironically, having spoken for almost 2 hours here. But it's useful, and you will learn a lot. And you may take away just one thing from every debrief. And if you do that, I promise you'll be a better racer by the time you leave here. Right? It is also completely voluntary. So, like, I understand we have to go to bed. I understand we have work. I understand we have kids. I'm never going to shame you if you don't show up. If you're driving quite badly and aren't showing up, I'll probably recommend more that you do show up because you need more help. But again, this is for your benefit. So I'm not gonna guilt you, right? You do what you want to do to have fun and improve. If you want to utilize everything we've got here, we are here. If you don't, we are still here. Right? So I would highly recommend you take advantage of those. I think that some of our fastest drivers have learned the most from the debriefs because, hell, we'll even show when I make mistakes, when the coaches make mistakes. Like, we're not infallible, right? So it grounds the whole racing journey of like, look, we make the same judgment mistakes that you make. This is what I should have done differently. Yada 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 yada.
Also, remember, we're not really there to just show all the bad stuff. If you guys have a good battle going on, we're willing to take a look at it and to show what good racing can be. If you have a good pass or something like that, yes, we will kind of diligently look through each one of these, but remember, we're not just here to say demoralize anybody or show a say a bad habit that's happening. We're trying to make sure that you guys understand when it's fresh in your mind. What were you thinking, like Davin said initially, and it makes it easier to remember what happened when it's not 3 days later and information is a little fuzzy or something like that. So that's one of the reasons why we try to do it right away.
So I've got this concept that I call the speed pyramid, which is basically a three-tiered pyramid of where people are in their driving. And the first stage is, can you drive around the racetrack safely? Like, can you show me the racing line? Can you be really consistent? Like, those sorts of things. And so sometimes we'll spend a lot of our time there. Stage two is, can you go fast? So now I know you know how to get around without crashing. That's not a thing I'm worried about anymore. It's, can we get the most out of our race car? And then stage three is like the racecraft stuff. And you bounce back and forth between mostly two and three a lot because as the pace increases, as you race more skilled people, then you have to figure out how to drive as fast as them so you can race them. One thing that I highly recommend you guys just be mindful of is like, don't lower the bar of your own achievement so low that you trip over it. Because I have heard every excuse, right? The people who are 9 seconds off the pace being like, I just want to work on my racecraft. Like, I get it, that's a diligent thing to want to do, but if you're 9 seconds off the pace, just general driving technique will speed you up so much that at the moment everyone's just driving away because they're better than you. And second, there's not a lot of people for you to be racing. And like, that's just me being real about it, right? So like, I will help you with things in the more advanced areas as your driving is improving. But like in some places, like, we don't need to worry about racecraft if you're super slow. We just need you to drive the car faster, and then you don't have to craft those people. You just race them, right? And then as you start to kind of figure out where you are, because everyone plateaus at some point, right? So as you're waiting for that next step of development, we can be like, hey, I have a rival I'm trying to beat. I'm struggling with this, that, this. Can we talk about how to race? I'm happy to, right? But sometimes the answer is just going to be, let's just get you driving better. So don't be mad. It's just how it is. Okay. Okay.
So Larry covered some of the things I wanted to add, but so these debriefs are not like, we are not just there to look at incidents. We can take a look at like some good overtake, or maybe you want to know like, could I have defended this move that my opponent made, or maybe like you lost control of your car and you don't understand why it happened. You want to know. Now we're probably not gonna look like a full lap of something because time is limited, but like if it's some incident or overtake or loss of control or some other like small thing that we can look through in a few minutes,
Mm-hmm.
just like don't hesitate, because I think in the past couple of seasons we've seen that the number of things that we've been looking has been going down quite a bit, and I'm not sure that's a good thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we are here to make you better racers.
I agree.
So
I agree. If we don't cover something, throw it in coaching discussion, right? Because then we have open time to check it over. Or if it's like a mental thing, right? Like maybe we don't want to spend 20 minutes talking about it right now, but it's something that bothers me. Like, hey, Davin, I get nervous on starts. Hey, Davin, I get nervous when someone's chasing me. Hey, Davin, I get red mist when someone cuts me off. Hey, Davin. Hey, Davin. Right? I'll either give you a tip or I'll point you to a resource, or we'll talk about it real quick if there's a thing, right? I have a bunch of little tips and titties and tchotchkes of things to help you get through that sort of stuff. I've been working on it for a long time, right? So, and honestly, if you have that problem, a lot of people do. And it's normally just a developmental area. Like, trust me, man. Like, if you come and tell me you're not nervous on starts or you don't get nervous on starts, I'm gonna call you a liar. Because, like, shit, I've been racing for 2 decades and I still get nervous on the starts. So like we're not here to shame you that you are trying to work on something. If anything, it's an admirable trait, right? And if you ask us, we will do our best to help you. And honestly, if I don't know, that's also great for me because I will go and write an article or go do some work to figure it out. So, like we're here to help and we want to. So. All right, last things. Promise. All right, real quick. Replays. Love them. Embrace them. Use them. Look at them. Sim racing is one of those rare opportunities where everybody is on track at the same time and you can see what everybody is doing if you pay attention. I would always have my replay set to max. I would also set my replays to autosave at all times. 90% of the things we talk about, honestly, are going to be observational. He's on the right, you're on the left. Why? He's braking here, you're braking there. Why? Right? And to be real frank about it, a lot of the stuff that we compare is just going to be things we notice between car A and car B, and then we'll explain to you how it works. But if you can start to do that and self-analyze yourself, you'll be vastly ahead of everybody. Like if anyone in this group has any motivation to develop in any sort of way, embrace looking at replays and actually looking, like not the just woo, right? Like I drove around, but like look where your car is on the road and see if there's space. Like look at this picture and say, am I on the far right or am I in the middle? Like it sounds dumb, but that is what we are doing, right? And so the sooner you learn to embrace that level of observation, you will get quickly, and it's just impossible not to be. Because it'll be like the racing line's from here to here. You're there and there. Just drive from here to here. Right? So if there is like one thing in this 2-hour conversation that I impart with you is the ability to observe and pay attention critically is one of the key skills in becoming fast quickly. Right? Understanding comes with experience. So with seat time, you'll be able to rationalize how the car works. But like, if I'm in the middle and you're on the right, you should probably ask, right? Like, shh, just take that, right? And go from there. And you'll have a great time. All right, we are done. You guys are heroes for staying here. I am really grateful you guys are here. I'm excited that you've joined our league. You will have a great time. It will be fun because I specifically requested it. But people have a great time here. At least I feel like they do because they keep showing up. Right? We want you to be better racers. We want you to have fun. We want you to go other places and take what you've learned and try them other places. Like, I'm never gonna be like, oh my god, you can only race here because that's impossible to police, right? But I want to at least feel like you've left with either the skills or the awareness that you needed the skills. Because like some people leave early, right? And also like this is a hobby, so like we have lives, and life is difficult now, and I understand that. You miss a couple races because life is hard. Life first, then racing. Always. Health first, then racing. Right? I'm never gonna bag on you because you're like, oh, I had a cold. I'm never gonna bag on you because work is difficult. I'm never gonna bag on you because you need a break. Right? We're gonna be here when you get back. So don't burn yourself out. Like have fun, learn, make friends. You'll go fast in time. Right?
I would say that unless you are like genuinely new to performance driving at all and you're really struggling for pace, don't just grind 6 days on like doing laps on the next track just for that one race, because that can easily take the fun out from the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you really love grinding laps, then sure, do it. But like, if it starts to feel like you're grinding and it's not fun, then maybe just go race. Like, there's many places where you can race, and if racing is like for me, that's the fun part. I don't usually practice a whole lot because I find it just not fun. Like an hour, fine. 6 hours for one race? No, I'm not gonna do that. That's not fun. I'll rather go race because racing is fun. So do the things that are fun. Like most of us are probably not trying to become esports professionals. So understand that you're here to have fun. So do the things that are fun.
Mm-hmm.
Now you do need to, like what Devin was saying earlier, you need to get faster as well, because the faster you get, the closer the battles become. Like when you're 9 seconds of pace, it's probable that everybody around you is either 8 seconds of pace or 10 seconds of pace, and there's not gonna be too many like tight battles. When you get closer, when you're like half a second of pace, there's probably gonna be a huge number of people who are just like marginally faster or very marginally slower, and you can have more battles. So yes, you do need to get faster, but like it shouldn't be the only aim to get faster. You also need to have fun.
So I know this is a lot. It's one of the reasons why this is going to be recording. It's another reason why the rookie orientation is optional. It's also a thing you're going to have to get used to because learning these skills is a little bit of drinking from the fire hose, right? If you go do any sort of track day or any sort of performance driving, you are going to spend a lot of time in the classroom, my guys. So I appreciate all you guys who have spent the time here because I know it's a lot. I wanted to condense it all into one big thing one time just so you get a sense for like how much there is to learn. But also, like, I'm here to remind you, like, you are here voluntarily. You are here to absorb as much as you want to voluntarily. You will learn at your own pace. You will absorb as much as you want. Uh, take the things that work for you, ignore the things that don't. Right? I just want this information to be available for you. And don't worry if like it didn't stick or like you have to go over it multiple times. I've been racing for a long time. There's things I have to ask about all the time. So don't worry about that. But if you're willing to like sit out and learn through stuff, I think you'll pick up a lot. All right, I promise I'm done. Any questions or comments or yada yada yada? Yes.
As one of those tier 2 racers trying to get fast, I can say that after that first race, getting your doors blown off by some of those faster guys can be disheartening. But if you focus on self-improvement and learning, sticking through the whole season can really be a fulfilling endeavor. And it's something I appreciate that you guys do for us.
Thank you. Yes, and amen, right? Like, you were going to race a lot if you're really interested in racing. Like, if you're not, that's fine. I'm not here to judge you. But, like, there's always another race. You're going to race tomorrow, right? So use the opportunities when someone blows your doors off as a learning opportunity to know that there's a lot more performance in the car that you can unlock, right? Like, 8 billion people on the planet. If 1% of them are faster than you, that's 80 million people. It's a lot. There's a lot of fast people out there. A lot of people know how to drive, right? So don't worry about it if you're just picking it up because everyone started with zero information at some point. So there's no stupid question. We're here to help you, right? So
Everybody has their own learning curve too.
yep, everyone starts from zero. There's folks that have been here for years that are still in stage 1. And that's okay, right? Like that's just the way the brain works, right? But this is a detailed, intricate, complicated hobby that can be a lot of fun, but it does have a bit of a learning curve. And the reason why we spend a lot of this time in the working orientation is to tell you that we're here for you and appreciate that there's a lot of that stuff happening. So I know it might seem like a huge fire hose. I'm sure half of you have checked out in the middle of it. That is totally okay. But we're happy to have you here. So
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing on someone that's had their doors blown off for multiple seasons. If you do, try and just get behind the person that blew your doors off and see what they're doing compared to you.
Yep. All right. So first race is Thursday for you guys. So you guys have a couple more days. You know where to find us if you have any questions. Any lasting comments before I let you guys either practice or go to bed?
Yeah, quick clarification if sorry.
No, go ahead, Craig. Go ahead.
Yeah, just wondering about, we were talking slightly about blue flags. Are the blue flags allowed to unlap themselves in this league, or are you wanting them just to kind of, once your blue flag, kind of stay out of the way kind of thing?
You can if you can make it work.
I mean, the rule is that blue flag is informational. The only thing that it mandates is that you are not allowed to actively defend when you're blue flagged. And that's generally speaking, that's the real life GT racing blue flag rule. It doesn't require anything except that you don't defend. If you're blue flagged and you want to unlap, go for it.
Yeah. If I make a mistake that leaves the door open and you go, that's on me to be aware. Right? Just realize what will happen immediately after. Right? So that's the thing. Like, that will come with experience. There are sometimes people will attack the leader and then wonder why the leader's right up their asshole because they were fast. So.
That's like I said. There was just a clarification because I have had places where you'll pass and then they'll try to pass and it's like, well, they couldn't pass and they're like, it's a blue flag defending. It's like it's not. It's a blue flag unlapping.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Just one
No,
clarification.
that's a good question. Yep, it's definitely just an informational blue flag unlapping, right? So you have every right to race like everyone else does.
All right, and the one point that I was going to make, I am available for the rest of the weekend if you guys want to do the setup and, the settings and that sort of thing for a, to make sure that your game is all set up properly. We can check your calibrations on your wheel, your pedals, even your monitor, that sort of thing. I'm going to go grab some food. I'll probably be back in about half an hour, maybe a little later. And we could start tonight if you like. If not, then tomorrow's fully open. I do have one person that wants to work with me at 4 o'clock tomorrow. So that time zone is a little on the closed side. So let me know in a DM if you guys have any time zone or times that you want to work and what you might want to work on. And we can go from there.
And if there are any questions from like anything that you just don't feel like answering now, your brain's tired, you didn't think about it, whatever, right? Just drop it somewhere in Rookie Chat, DM me, something I said didn't make sense, right? Like, you're never gonna bother me. So just reach out and be like, hey, question. I'll be like, great, right? This will be great. So you guys are gonna have a lot of fun. All right, class dismissed. Appreciate y'all. I'll talk to you soon. Go away.
Thank you.
So yes, sir.
Thank you all to everyone.
Have a good
Appreciate
one,
it.
everybody.
Thank you guys for
Have a good
showing up
night.
tonight.
Good night.